Yeah. Testing. If the U.S. Senate candidates would please take the platform. What do you need, sweetie? Is it on? Is yours on? Yeah.
My name is Terry Butler, and on behalf of the Kiowa County Republican Central Committee, I would like to welcome and thank you all for being here. We also want to thank all of the candidates for participating and giving us all the opportunity to hear from you. Sue Greenleaf has graciously stepped up to be our moderator this evening, and so I will turn it over to her. Sue?
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. We are starting with the U.S. Senate race. This is the race that Pat Roberts has held for the last several years. I believe there were 11 candidates that I saw listed through our county election office. I invited all of the candidates with the exception of the one whose address was Richland, Washington, and it appeared as though he was running for Senate in Minnesota and Kansas. Derek Ellis, I had thought was going to be here, but apparently he was unable to make it. Lance Berland is on the stage. Gabriel Robles was called and said he was unable to attend. I got an email this morning from Roger Marshall that he would not be able to attend, but sent his best wishes. Bob Hamilton was to send a representative. I guess that didn't happen. Chris Kobach is here, and David Lindstrom is here. The other candidates, I got absolutely no response. The candidates received some questions as well as the format, and we are starting out with each candidate gives a 3-minute introductory speech, and then we will have answers that they had been sent, and they will have 3 minutes to answer those questions. We also have 2 questions from the audience that will be asked before their 5-minute concluding remarks. I want to tell you that I'm so glad you're here, and you can certainly take up all your time if you want to, but don't feel like you have to. Okay, we are starting with alphabetical order, and that kind of threw me because Ellis wasn't here, so I'll have to reevaluate. Okay, let's see. H-I-J-K-L. So it's going to be here. H-I-J-K-L.
I was wrong.
Well,
Chris.
you know, the thing of it is you don't need the alphabet much in the Senate. So,
Are these good? Well,
yes.
powerful. My name is Lance Berland. I was born in Hays, Kansas in 1974. That's where my story began. Western Kansas, son and daughter of wheat farmers from Damar, Kansas, Grinnell, Kansas. I got to stay with my godmother last night, who happens to be my mom's twin, so I actually literally have a second genetic mother and spiritual mother. And so we had a good talk till about 1:15 this morning, went to bed at 3 o'clock, and got up and then went and visited family in Oakley. And this has been an incredible day. So I'm glad to be here on this stage with these men. These are giants. You know, I'm David. These guys are like Goliath. And, you know, Congressman Marshall would go into that same category. So I'm the dark horse, the dark cat in this race. And it's been a mission from God from the beginning to to hopefully purify the Republican Party, to cleanse it of all evil, and to move forward in faith, because we are at war. I don't know if you know that. Greensburg looks like a pretty cool town. This is a really nice theater. It's the nicest theater we've been in. But we're at war, and it's the second Civil War. It's the second American Revolution. It's World War III, and it's a spiritual war. And you can look up everything you need to know about me or how I think, you know, what I find important, what I find interesting, what I'm passionate about. For 10 months, I posted everything to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And as much as I can humanly stand, and along with spend a lot of time in church, a lot of time in prayer, because we've got to return to God. This is a Christian party. It was founded in direct opposition to the Democrat Party that was started 25 years before. And we're a party that gets things done because we work with the will of God. And if we get away from the will of God, which is sin, then we are not Republicans anymore. We're something in between. So I just ask that we all be Republicans and be Christians, be patriots, and let's fix this thing. Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time, and what a beautiful theater this is. I've driven through the town so many times since the tornado, but I've never actually stopped and seen this theater from the inside, so what an incredible structure this is. I'm sure many of you know a little bit about me because I was your Secretary of State for 8 years, from 2011 to 2019, and one thing you probably also know about me is no one's ever called me a liberal. And that is that I'm very conservative, and I walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And I made some promises to you in 2010 when I wanted to be your Secretary of State. I said I would make Kansas the #1 state in America in stopping voter fraud. And God willing, if I got into the position, I would draft a bill that would do that. And that happened. And we became the first state in America to combine photo ID, equivalent security for mail-in ballots, and proof of citizenship at the polls. Only state in America to combine those three things. And the other secretaries of state acknowledged that Kansas really was the strongest state. And President Trump in 2017 appointed me to lead his presidential commission against voter fraud and for election integrity. So I delivered on that promise, and many of you may know that I've also had a career for the last 2 decades working against illegal immigration, and that's been an important part of what I do, and it's a line that I've held consistently for those years. I was the attorney who represented the 10 ICE agents who sued the Obama administration. I helped Arizona draft its law. I've been advising President Trump on immigration since February of 2016, and I was the only statewide or congressional office holder in the entire state of Kansas who endorsed President Trump in the primary process. Back then, Roger Marshall endorsed John Kasich, the guy who's now going to be giving a speech at the Democrats' convention. So no one, like I say, no one doubts my conservative credentials, and I'm going to be making some conservative promises to you now too. Things that I will accomplish for you, or at least I'll tell you where if I can't get it done, I will fight as hard as I can. So 4 things really quickly. #1, immigration. President Trump doesn't have a point man on immigration right now in the Senate. Nobody who has the ability to move the ball forward. There's so many things we need to get done. We need to get the wall completed. When this year is done, we'll have about 500 miles of wall, but the border is over 1,900 miles long. So much more to do. It's going to take a second term, and it's good for President Trump, but it's going to take people in the Senate who will fight, who will attach wall funding to every appropriations bill they can. That will be my mission, and closing so many loopholes that exist in our immigration laws. #2, judges. You might not know that before I became your Secretary of State, I taught constitutional law as a law professor. And I've litigated many cases around the country against the ACLU. And I know the damage that liberal activist judges can do. And I will fight to ensure that they do not get on the federal courts of the United States. I'll mention the other issues later.
We will go to the questions that they Oh, I'm so sorry. Good grief. They're not going to ask me back.
Is this on now? Yeah. Good evening, and it is a beautiful theater. It's great to be back in Greensburg. I was here shortly after the tornado, and it was devastating what I saw. Your former city manager, Steve Hewitt, is a good friend of mine. I served with him on he's the CEO of the Kansas Turnpike Authority, and I'm one of the board members there. To those whom much is given, much is expected. If you live in the state of Kansas, you've been blessed. I feel like I've been doubly blessed because I've had an opportunity to grow up in a great family. I've had a great education, an opportunity to play for the Kansas City Chiefs for 9 years in the NFL, to own my own business, and now to run for United States Senate. I want to give you a little bit of my background. I tell you I come from a blue-collar family, and I'm going to add a little levity here, but to give you an idea where I come from, I have two brothers that also played in the NFL. One, my youngest brother, was quite an athlete and recruited all over the country. He was recruited to the University of Michigan, and he went there, and they were putting on a show for this guy, trying to get my brother to come to University of Michigan. Now, mind you, coming from a blue-collar family, our family never went out to eat. So my brother is sitting there in a country club, out of his element, and the waiter walks up to my brother and says, young man, what would you like for dinner tonight? And my brother looked at the waiter and says, I'll have a steak. And the waiter says, how would you like that, medium? And my brother says, no, I want a great big one. We never went out to dinner. Folks, when I say to those whom much is given, much is expected, I expect a lot of myself. And I expect that as your U.S. Senator, you expect a lot of me too as well. I'm running for the United States Senate because I believe, as Lance mentioned, I believe that this country is under attack. We're under attack from within. When people are talking in Washington, D.C. about socialism as an economic way forward for this country. We're under attack when people are calling for open borders at the expense of life, liberty, and the health of our citizens. We're under attack when we have elected officials, year after year after year, authorizing trillion-dollar deficits. Folks, we're under attack when we have people that have a disregard for the sanctity of life, a disregard for the unborn, calling for post-birth abortions. Folks, pure and simple, that's murder. And we're under attack when we have people in Washington, D.C. that want to take away your Second Amendment rights. That's why I'm running for the United States Senate. This is a critical election, folks, a critical election. We need to nominate someone in the Republican Party that can win in the general election. I hope you give us that consideration. Thank you.
These are the questions that were sent to them, and we will go right to left in answering them. And I promise I'll let everybody answer it this time. The first question, many newly elected officials have high hopes of becoming part of the solution and then become part of the problem. What action do you plan on taking to keep that from happening?
Starting stage right or audience right? Okay. Yeah, there's definitely a trend in politics, and it doesn't have to be in the U.S. Congress. It can be in the state legislature. It can be on the county commission. And that is, I've always said there are two types of politicians. There are politicians who are running because they want the title. They want to be called secretary, governor, senator, whatever, commissioner. Then there are politicians who are running because they have a cause. They have something that is driving them, a specific thing they want to accomplish. I think the ones that become part of the problem are the ones who just want to stay there and want that title, they want that fancy office. The ones who don't become part of the problem are the ones who are going there with a mission. And that's why I introduce and I speak all over the state of Kansas talking about these are the promises, these are the specific things I will accomplish for you if you send me on this mission. I want to be your agent, I want to be your employee to accomplish this mission. If I'm going there for a mission, I'm not going to become part of the problem. And I think another aspect of it is term limits too. I've signed the pledge to enforce, to call for a constitutional amendment for term limits. I believe Dave has also signed that pledge. This is incredibly important because the people who are part of the problem are the lifers who stay there for 30, 40 years. And they become beholden to the special interests who give them the PAC money and the Political Action Committee money and other money that keeps them in power. I'm not interested in going there for life. I'm interested in accomplishing the missions that I'm setting out for you. And then finally, I think the other ones that are part of the problem are the ones who are constantly giving out money. And this is what the swamp is defined by, right? The swamp is all about moving your taxpayer money to places that will help those in office. My view of the swamp is you've got to stop feeding the creatures in the swamp. And that means stop feeding them your taxpayer dollars. And that's a critical issue here. I think you should send someone who's got a track record of cutting expenditures. And when I was your Secretary of State, I cut the budget from $7.0 million and cut it every single year down to $4.6 million. So that saved over those 8 years, and it continues to save Kansas taxpayers millions of dollars each year. I'll take the same approach in Washington, D.C. We have got to cut federal spending. And this is another issue that defined a difference between me and Roger Marshall, who unfortunately didn't want to come here. Roger Marshall voted against a cut of only 1%. There was a bill that would have cut across the board 1% except for defense, which would not have been cut. He voted against it. I would have voted for it, and I would have said 1%'s not enough. Let's cut it 5%. Let's cut it 10%. I've seen from my own agency, you can shave a lot of fat off of government spending. So those are my approaches to not becoming part of the problem. Term limits, cutting the funding, and having the right attitude going in. I want to go in and accomplish the mission for you. Thanks.
3 minutes. Yes. Is it on?
Can you hear me? There we go. Wow. Could you repeat the question, Sue?
Oh, yes. Many newly elected officials have high hopes of becoming part of the solution and then become part of the problem. What actions do you plan on taking to keep that from happening?
That's the question of our time, isn't it? I concur with everything Chris said. I'd like to take that as a jumping off point. A lot of my best supporters have been Convention of States people, and if you're familiar with Convention of States, it's a movement of the people, the fifth article of the Constitution, to convene the states to make amendments to fix the wrongs. And so they're working on that. They're only on 3 areas right now, and that's fiscal restraint, term limits, and government overreach. It's very broad, very general. They're at 15 states now. There's 26 states working on it, but you have to have 38 states in our 50-state union to ratify an amendment. So the people have the power, but every time that movement gets close, and this was told to me by Art Howells, a great American from Lincoln, Kansas. I hope you get to know him at some point. And if you need a copy of the Constitution, I got one with Art's name and phone number on it, because get it explained to you by Art Howell. That's the way to hear about the Constitution. But the point is, every time the Convention of States got close, and they did back in the day, to getting something done, then they would get some appeasement from the congressman, the 30, 40-year congressman, which is what we're talking about here. And then they backed off the Convention of States. 2 years later, the appeasement was repealed, and we were right back where we were. And then they had to start almost from scratch. So the people have to stay at it. They have to keep their, ear to the ground, not to the TV, and you got to have your nose at the grindstone. I believe in a term limit of 12 years for all federal positions. I'm not even sure that shouldn't apply to judges, but that's something the people will have to decide, because I believe the president should have 3 terms. Trump definitely deserves 12 years if we could give FDR 14, looking at it in historical context. So I believe 2 terms in the Senate and 6 terms in the House is plenty. So that's the kind of things I believe in. And most importantly, we have to elect incorruptible statesmen, not elected leaders. They have to represent the people, because that's what we're electing as representatives. And if they don't represent us, then they're on the wrong team. So thank you.
When I retired from the Chiefs, I did so to own and operate my own business. And I operated my own a chain of fast food restaurants, had 125 employees, had hired over the last 25 years thousands of people in the state of Kansas. And I always know who I work for. if you came into my restaurant and you were missing something and you walked up to the front counter, I was going to be there to make sure everything was right. I always know who I work for. That starts right there. As your U.S. Senator, you will be the people at the front counter in my book. I am also for term limits. I've signed the term limits pledge for 2 terms for a U.S. Senate. I also want you to know that I think, unlike anyone else in this race, I'm not going to be taking a salary. My salary is going to go, I will take the salary, but it will go to Kansas charities. I'm not in this to do anything but to serve, not to be self-serving. I also think that all of our elected officials, when I played for the Chiefs, when I ran my own business, I was paid based on my performance. What I think Congress and the Senate ought to be judged by, as I talked about earlier, one of the reasons I believe we're under attack is because of our excessive, unsustainable deficits. I believe that for every billion with a B, $billion of deficits, that our elected officials in Washington ought to take a $100 per year, $100 per year cut in their pay. That's what I would recommend. Now with $1 trillion, that's 1,000 billion. So if we had last year a $3 trillion deficit, that would be a $300,000 cut in pay based on their performance. So that would be the other thing that I would do, and I think that covers it, yeah.
We'll start with you, Lance. This question, what committee do you want to serve on and why?
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm not a politician. I'm a first-time politician like our president was, like Eisenhower was. You know, I'm also from Abilene. I'm pretty humble. But God has called me to this mission, so I think I could be on any committee because it's a matter of I want to know everything about how our government works anyway. You know, being from Western Kansas and having so many farmers that are still friends and young farmers. I got farmers in Chapman. I live in Abilene, out in the country on a dirt road on a ranch of my dad's. So I mean, there's farmers all around, and they've really, because they know me and my background. My dad's still in Wagyu cattle. We were the top racing greyhound operation in the world, and I was a big part of that. But you know, prior to that, Dad was in race horses and show horses. I mean, it's always been agriculture. I mean, we may not have had food as a child, but my parents always had a horse. And it's just agriculture is part of they can't get away from it. They're farm kids. So I got plenty of people to talk to and figure out where I'm needed, where my skills would be used. But skills of critical thinking, of logic, of doing the right thing, that's good on any committee. So.
Three committees that I would choose to serve on, first and foremost is Ag Committee, because that is 40% plus of the Kansas economy. And I think it's too important to this country, too important to the state, too important to the world that we have a U.S. Senator from Kansas serving on the Ag Committee. That would be first and foremost. Secondly, I mentioned that my association with Steve Hewitt with the Kansas Turnpike. I also was a county commissioner in Johnson County and represented the unincorporated areas of Johnson County. There are some unincorporated areas there. And I was involved intricately with the folks that work with infrastructure in roads and bridges. And so I have a background there, and I would want to do that because I think that is so important to the state of Kansas as it relates to our transportation and infrastructure. And then finally, I would want to serve on small business, because that is what I have done for the last 25 years, well, since my retirement from the Chiefs. I owned and operated my own business, and anyone who's involved in ag is involved in a business. That is a business, and I think my background as it relates to knowing what it's like to hire people to sign the front of a check would be advantageous to the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, I know exactly what committees I'd like to serve on. First of all, I've already mentioned it, Judiciary, because Kansas hasn't had anyone on the Judiciary Committee for 10 years. And this is where the battle is to save our Constitution and to ensure that the last line of defense against activist judges is those senators on the Judiciary Committee. So first of all that. Secondly, Homeland Security, because there again, I'd be able to add value for you because of my expertise with the President, advising him on immigration policy and making sure we get that wall built. But the third one is ag, and of course, as has been mentioned, Kansas has always had a seat on that ag committee. I'm confident we always will have a seat on that ag committee, but there too, I have a mission. And that mission is something I was talking about in Buckland yesterday, and some of you were there. The mission is this: we have got to save the Kansas cattle rancher. There is a crisis right now in the industry. In the last 20 years, more than 6,000, almost 6,000 Kansas cattle ranches have gone out of business. Yet at the same time, the prices of steak in the grocery store are the highest we've ever seen them a couple months ago. There is a problem here. How can it be that someone is going out of business when their product is priced more highly than ever? And of course the answer is that the big four packers have consolidated, now control 82% of all beef processed in the United States, and they are able to collude and set prices. Ask anyone who's in that industry and they will confirm that's what's happening. So they're buying at about $1.10 a pound, and they were able to sell recently as high as $4.75 a pound. Meanwhile, the cattleman's going out of business. There is a legislative solution to this problem. There are 3 bills that I will support that will solve, and they need to be passed immediately. It'll be a high priority of mine as soon as I get in there to get these bills moving. First of all, there is the Prime Act, which is in the House right now. That would bring small and medium-sized packers back into the marketplace so that our cattlemen would have other places to sell and get a better price. Roger Marshall will not. There's 52 House co-sponsors, mostly Midwestern Republicans. Not Roger Marshall. I will sign on and I will push it in the Senate. Another one is the 5014 Act. Chuck Schumer, senator from Iowa, is trying to save Iowa cattlemen and other Midwestern cattlemen. This would force the big packers to buy 50% of their livestock, of their cattle, on the spot market or cash market. Much more transparent pricing. That would also solve the problem. Again, I support it. Marshall doesn't. Third, mandatory country of origin labeling. Again, I support it. He doesn't. This is so critical. We had it for 2 years, from 2013 to 2015, and during those 22 years, the cattlemen were doing all right. There was a little bit of respite there, but as soon as the World Trade Organization said, well, you know, if you do that, if you allow someone to see where the cattle is grown, where the cattle is slaughtered, and all that information, people are going to prefer USA cattle. Well, yeah, of course they are. That's why we put it on there. And if the World Trade Organization won't let us do it, then let's get out of the World Trade Organization. We've got to know where our cattle comes from. Right now they're substituting Brazilian cattle for USA cattle, and we don't even know it because on the supermarket it all gets the same USDA stamp. I'm going to fight for this, and that's a big difference between the candidates in this race.
The next question, and if it's okay, Chris, we'll start with you. As a newly elected senator, would you be willing and/or interested in looking for an avenue to enforce the packers and stockyard laws that have been on the books for close to 100 years?
Yeah, that kind of continues with what I was just talking about. I won't belabor the point too much, but yeah, there are also existing laws that aren't being enforced as well. And one of those laws is the law against collusive pricing. And so you might know this, just in recent months, 12, now it's up to 12 state attorneys general, including our Kansas Attorney General, have requested that U.S. Department of Justice investigate the collusive pricing because it violates federal antitrust law to collude together and set prices like this. And the subpoenas have already gone out from the Justice Department to the large packers to inquire what's going on. What communication have you had with the other packers? And so enforcing those laws, enforcing the beef and the stockyard laws also. So there are laws we can enforce on the books right now, and they must be, and I know that from my relationship with President Trump, if I tell him, hey, look, this law is not being enforced, I think he'll give a real fair hearing to that, and if he can see that it's not being adequately enforced, he will direct resources to do it. But also we have to have those new laws, because even if the enforcement of the law, say the collusive pricing, that Justice Department investigation is going to take 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. And then once they take action, there might be litigation in court. That could take another year, year and a half. Meanwhile, another 1,000 Kansas cattle ranches go under. We don't have time to just wait for the slow judicial process of enforcing these laws that involve judicial penalties. We have to also make immediate changes, like through the Prime Act and the 5014 Act, that immediately change the way beef is priced. And so I think you have to do things as quickly as possible. This is an issue of survival for these ranches. And by the way, when the ranches go under, they don't sell to the neighboring landowner because he's ranching and he's losing money too. They have to sell their land because that's the only asset they have when they're going out of business. And so whom do they sell to? Foreign entities and large corporations from out of state. So we are losing a little bit of the Kansas soul every time another ranch goes under. This is a crisis, and it needs to be treated like a crisis, and I will do so.
Dave?
The simple answer to the question is yes. I will work to enforce the Packers and Stockyard Act and the rules that are currently in place. Food supply is a national security issue, and we ought to treat it like a national security issue. In my former profession, I had direct experience with antitrust laws. I worked for the NFL, I worked for Kansas City Chiefs, and I was beholden to them no matter what because they had a monopoly on where I could work. And they decided they had rules. If your contract expired, you had to deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. I could not go to another team if I wanted to, and I didn't want to, but if I wanted to, I couldn't. So I'm intricately involved with or experienced in what goes on as far as the antitrust laws are concerned. Now, as far as doing something, actually doing something about this, I want you to know that in college I had a roommate. His name was Mike Eruzione. Wasn't a roommate, a classmate, I'm sorry. And he was the captain of the hockey team that won the gold medal in 1980. And because of his celebrity as the captain of that team that won the gold medal for the first time in years, he has a relationship. He plays golf with the president, with President Trump, who I have never met. After traveling throughout the state and learning about the horrible problem that's going on with the cattle industry in the state of Kansas and the dire situation that our producers face, and the antitrust rules that we have with only 4 packers and 2 of which are foreign-owned, Brazil and China, I wrote a letter. As a candidate for this office, for the United States Senate, I wrote a letter to President Trump, and I wanted to make sure that he got that letter. And I have a copy of that letter here, and I'll be happy to forward this letter to anyone. It's on my website too, lindstromforsenate.com. And what it does, it talks about all the issues that the producers are going through right now. And within a week of the time that he got this letter, and I know Mike Eruzione assured me that President Trump got this letter. Within a week, President Trump called for an investigation. I don't know whether it had something to do with my letter or whether it was a coincidence. But as far as enforcing what's going on with the Stockyard and the Packers, I would most certainly work to enforce the laws we have right now rather than add additional bureaucracy to the problem.
It always takes a minute to kick back on. I agree with these guys. I mean, it's not a duck in the question. It's just, you know, my dad's in cattle. I mean, he just had to have a dispersal sale in Salina a few weeks ago. It went really well. They sold about $900,000 worth of bulls, cows, heifers, semen, embryos. I mean, it wasn't a full dispersal, but it was necessary because of our other business, because of the COVID-19 hysteria and fascist actions of our governor and many other governors around the United States, except Kristi Noem of South Dakota, one of our Republicans, somebody that actually stood up for freedom and remembers 1968 and 69. You know, we had Woodstock during a pandemic. 1976, they tried to stick everybody with a swine flu vaccine. Most people didn't fall for it. So we've been through this before, but we only, Richard Nixon said Americans will only believe what they see on television. And that's really been a big problem. So, but as far as this beef industry goes, I got a lot of friends in the industry. My uncle, I live up north of Grinnell. They've been, beef people for a long time. The Schwartz is, and it's a father-son operation, actually father and two sons, Victor, Todd, and Tony Schwartz. They're great people, and they've diversified. They have farmland and they grow crops too, but I mean, cattle is their primary business. And I got a lot of friends in Abilene and around that area that still do a lot of cattle. So I love beef, and hopefully you do too, because it's good for you. And we need to protect these guys, protect our food supply, so that we can keep getting whatever version of that beef you want, whether it's a ribeye or a filet mignon or ground beef. But it's important, and I will do everything I can to get to the bottom of issues that are affecting our friends and the people we're trying to represent. So thank you.
And for the final question that they received this week, all of you support our President Donald Trump. How do you define support? Lance, can we start with you?
Is it better if I stand, or is this fine?
You can do whatever you want.
I feel comfortable. Let's just have a little chat here. Donald Trump was a bunker-busting bomb to the deep state. And, my only goal, or I shouldn't say my only goal, but I know a big part of this mission that I've been called to is to be that to the Senate. It's, what do we got up there? We got, on the Republican side, we got the Mitch McConnells and been there a long time, and Lindsey Graham, and we don't really know what side some of those guys sit on. And then the other side of the aisle, we've got some maniacs and lunatics like Chuck Schumer and Dianne Feinstein, who I've heard runs the Senate on both sides of the aisle. So it's an ugly, ugly place. So if you're not sending someone up there to help the president, then you're not a Republican. That's all there is to it. And I think that everybody understands, based on my first comment or my intro, that this is a war. And you better be ready to die and lay down your life for your friends, for your family, for your children, if you're walking into that place. Because I'm going there to help drain it, and then cleanse it, and then dismantle it, because we don't need to be $30 trillion in debt. That's what gives over the ownership of our country to other nations, and the heavy tax rate that they've able to put on us. We didn't have taxes in this country, income taxes in this country, until 1902. How do we survive from 1789 until 1902 with that income tax? These are questions that need answers. And they've committed a lot of crimes, they've stolen a lot of money, and we have to get to the bottom of it. So I just want to be the guy that brings the Republican Party back to the place where it got things done, and let's support this president and the one after him, because this is a 6-year term. So I'm not running to just support Trump. I hope it's somebody a lot like Trump, and that we can keep moving forward, properly progressing towards the beautiful paradise that this could be, instead of the dystopia that the left is trying to create. Thank you.
Those of us who love what the president has done in the last 4 years, especially when he makes a promise, he keeps it. The president is a fighter on the field, and I want you to know that for 9 years I competed in one of the highest competitive sports that we have in this country, possibly in the world. I battled 300-pound men who wanted to tear my head off all the time. I also was successful in my business. The president needs someone who's going to have his back. I will help the president with his judiciary, with putting the right people in judiciary. I think what's going on right now, if you turn on the television set, you turn on a radio, open a newspaper, our parents would not believe what's going on right now. They'd think this is an episode of Twilight Zone when we have discussions of defunding the police. I talked to some of the officers here tonight and said, stay strong. I will do everything in my power to make sure that we fund our police, fund our military, have a halt to this anarchy that's going on here. Support the president with his economic policies, putting America first, jobs first, bringing back manufacturing to this country, especially the PPE, the emergency and medical needs that we have as it relates to this coronavirus. And most importantly, when I talked about our country being under attack, Lance mentioned it as well. This deficit is unsustainable. And if we want to pass a legacy to our children and our grandchildren that is unsustainable, then we should continue with this deficit. But I'm not going to be that person. I'm going to be hawk as it relates to deficit spending and programs like I mentioned earlier. Thank you.
I support the president in 3 ways. Number one is carrying legislation for him. Right now, Republicans are playing defense in way too many places. On immigration, for example, did you know that the last time we had a truly comprehensive immigration bill that did a lot to encourage and improve enforcement in the United States was 1996? That's almost a quarter century ago. And part of the reason for that is that Republicans are mainly playing defense. They're not actually carrying conservative legislation forward. And you need someone who understands the issue frontward and backward. And of course, the president and I have been talking about immigration now for 4.5 years. So I will carry the ball for the president on offense, not just play defense. Second is advise the president. Because we have gotten to know each other and we have a trust over those years, the president has asked me for advice, and I will give him honest advice, not advice that tries to manipulate him, because he has a lot of people in the Congress and in the White House who are trying to manipulate him, trying to push him against his own interests. There are never Trumpers all over Washington, D.C., people who wear the Republican label but do not have the president's interest at heart. And I will be one of the people who gives him advice, who points out who is not being honest with him in the White House or in the Congress, who is a Republican. So that's really important to have that advice. And when the president nominated Justice Kavanaugh, I was one of the people he talked to beforehand and asked what I thought of Kavanaugh. I don't know if my advice was the one that finally, I said yes, I did support him. It was one of the one that pushed him to the line, oh, okay, I'm ready to nominate him. But the point is, if he trusts me enough now to ask me, he'll trust me even more as a senator, because I will be giving him advice on who those judges should be. And then the final thing, the third thing, is I will never shoot the president in the back. There are Republicans who do that all the time. When the president took China to the table and went toe-to-toe with China, and then we ended up in a tariff war, you need Republicans who are going to stand behind the president and say, I'm in this with the president. But once again, the guy who's not here, Roger Marshall, wrote an op-ed in the Kansas City Star, and in that paper he said that Kansas soybean farmers can't stand another round of tariffs. I am a Kansas soybean farmer. We have soybeans in the field right now on our farm. And we can, if necessary, stand another round of tariffs, because we will take a short-term hit for long-term fair trade with our adversary, not our ally, our adversary, China. We need to stand behind the president, not write op-eds criticizing the president. The president needs true supporters who will be honest with him and who will have his back.
The question we have from the audience: what is your opinion on selling our meatpacking business to foreign entities? Dave, can we start with you?
My opinion on selling meatpacking industry to foreigners, is that the question?
Yes.
Yes. I think we've done enough of that already. We've talked about that all evening tonight as it relates to the cattle industry. And food supply is a national security issue. And if that is the case, we don't want our national security to be controlled by foreign entities. So absolutely no.
Yeah, I agree completely with Dave. I mean, I'm a free market capitalist. You know, I think the reason that it happens is because the people on the other side in these other nations that don't play by the same rules as us, they have more money than God. They have more money than we do, because our money is more equally divided up among the people that have produced it, and they're playing from an unfair wallet. But I think ultimately, if we improve the way we run America, then the people will, as we always have, it's kind of like the Democrats ruin economies and the Republicans say, it's okay guys, stay home, we'll get this going. And we need to release the people as a party by getting the right people in Congress, in every level in government, local, state, county, that are free market capitalists, that are compassionate Christian conservatives, that are Republicans. And if we can get the right people in office, we can lower the taxes, get rid of redundancy, get rid of waste, have plenty of money for the people to start their own businesses. I mean, because Americans are doers, Kansans are entrepreneurs. You know, we started out as farmers, and some of us are still farmers, and the rest of us hopefully are entrepreneurs or working for a great entrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with having a job, but it's not as good as running your own show. And let's continue to create an America where Hays, Kansas can grow to be as big as Wichita, and that this is a great place to live in the whole world. Let's export Kansas to America. Let's export America to the world. Let's make the world a better place. So that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Well, I've been talking about this a lot tonight, but there's more to say. When foreign entities control the food supply, in whatever the food it is, there is a big problem. So we've talked about beef. 2 of the 4 beef packing giants are Brazilian owned. And so what is the consequence there? The consequence is that Brazilian cattle, Brazilian beef, is being substituted for American beef, and then it's slaughtered here, but they bring it up from Brazil, and then it gets the USDA approved. It's packaged exactly, and in a deceptive way, a very deceptive way. It's packaged as if it is U.S. beef. It is not USA beef. It is beef that is born and grown outside of this country and is inferior to Kansas beef. So that's one problem. The consumer is fooled and the Kansas cattleman is harmed. The second problem, now let's talk about a different industry, and that's pork. Smithfield is Chinese owned now, and that's in the pork processing area. Anytime an adversary of the United States, there was this view that the elder George Bush, viewed, and it was an idealistic dream he had, that China would become like the United States, and China would be a democracy, they would be fair traders, they'd be just like us, and they would work in our interest. They are not. They view us as the enemy, and we have been naive. And so when they control a vital part of our food supply, that's a national security problem for the United States. So those are the consequences when foreign countries control the American food supply. So I will be doing everything in my power to make sure that that problem does not get worse, and hopefully we can actually do something to reduce the problem as it is now.
It's now time for the 5-minute conclusion statements. I'm going to start with Dave so I don't forget him.
I'm going to stand for this one. It has been a magnificent honor and pleasure to run for the United States Senate in the state of Kansas. Nowhere in my wildest dream could I imagine that I would be standing before a group here and previous nights to do this. As I travel the state of Kansas, I've talked to people, I've looked them in the eye, and I found that they are looking for something different than what they have been offered up to now. They're looking for someone who's authentic, who's tough, who has the right temperament, who has an experience in public and community service. And I offer them my services in that regard. It has been an honor for me to do that, to meet. I mean, it's been one of the more difficult things I've ever done in my life, and I've done some difficult things. But I want you to know that no one will work harder or fight harder for you. It has, when I say it's been an honor and it's been difficult, there have been a lot of joys. One of the joys that I had was I got to sit down across the table from the granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, Mary Eisenhower. And I got to meet her, and she is supporting our campaign. And I asked her, I said, tell me something that happened unique with you as it relates to your grandfather being the president. And there's 2 things. These are they're interesting to me. She said, when I was a little girl, she said, my most vivid memory of the White House was sitting on Charles de Gaulle's lap playing with his eyeglasses. I thought, boy, this is terrific. The next day, my wife, I was working out. My wife, I had gym shorts on, and she said, "What's all those bruises on your leg?" And I said, I was sitting across from Mary Eisenhower, and I was pinching myself because it was hard for me to believe that I was actually there sitting and talking with her. And I also tell you that I've learned many lessons, and sometimes I've learned a lesson from some of the most unusual sources. And having run my own business, having played professional sports, now having running for the United States Senate, you can imagine you can have a big head and a big ego. And a lot of times we're out in functions like this and shaking hands and visiting with folks, and you have a little bit of a big head. So one time we were at a retirement home, and I'm saying hello, and I see a lady over in the corner, and she's in a wheelchair, and she's by herself in the corner. And I walked over here with my big head, and I said, ma'am, looked her in the eye, I said, "Do you know who I am?" And she looked at me and said, "No, but if you check at the front desk, I'm sure they'll tell you." Sometimes you have to have a little humility, and sometimes you're taught a little humility by people the most unusual places. Folks, I want you to know that this is not on my bucket list to run for the United States Senate. I'm 65 years old. I'm in good health, but I'm a Kansan by choice. When I retired from the Kansas City Chiefs, my wife and I could have lived anywhere in the country. We could have gone anywhere in the country. We wanted to stay here because we thought that this is the best place to live, to work, and to raise a family. And 42 years later, we still believe it. I love this state. I'd like to work for you. I ask for your vote. I ask for your support on August 4th. God bless you, and God bless this great state of Kansas. Thank you.
Chris?
You know, there's an old saying, you can tell a lot about a person by who his or her friends are. And I've been honored in this race to have friends who've come out and supported me, people like Ann Coulter, very prominent conservatives, people like Sheriff David Barton, the sheriff from Milwaukee, people like Jim DeMint, one of the most prominent conservative senators in our lifetimes, and also the organizations that have supported me. I've gotten the sole endorsement from Gun Owners of America and from the Border Patrol Council. They rarely endorse in a Senate or congressional race, but they saw this race and this opportunity in Kansas to get me in as something that would make a difference in the border security of our country. But you can also tell a lot about a person by who his enemies are. And I know I'm the only Republican in this race, and I think I might be the only Senate candidate in America who has been publicly criticized by Chuck Schumer, AOC, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Rachel Maddow. And I'll take that as a badge of honor. Why is it that I'm the only person who's been publicly criticized by those four leading liberals? It's because I pose a threat, and they've seen what I've done so far in my career, and they do not want me in the U.S. Senate. And frankly, that's a good sign that they don't want me, because the left has declared war on our Constitution, it's declared war on our police, it's declared war on ICE, and they see me as someone who threatens their agenda, and I will continue to threaten their agenda if I'm in the U.S. Senate. But you know who else has declared war on me? Or has declared war that they don't want me there, besides those radical leftists, are the Washington, D.C. establishment itself. And if you've been watching any TV or listening to any radio, you know that there are some horrific ads that are being run against me, and they are complete lies, saying I'm a white nationalist, saying that I'm not pro-life, never mind that KFL, Kansas for Life, has endorsed me 4 times, and a whole host of pro-life organizations have, saying that I've taken public money for personal enrichment. None of these are true. But the DC swamp doesn't care about the truth. They want somebody they can mold, somebody who's a yes man for Mitch McConnell, somebody who won't take a conservative stand, somebody who won't be a disruptor like President Trump has been. The establishment, oh, they pretend that they like the president on the Republican side, but they don't. They're already making plans for a post-Trump Republican Party. Well, let me tell you, I pose a threat to that establishment, and I will continue to fight. And the reason I don't care about the establishment ads, and I don't care about AOC and Chuck Schumer, what they say about me, is I don't work for them. I work for you, and I will always remember that.
Five minutes is a lot of time, so I'll try to keep it down. But this has been quite a journey. I love people. I love Kansas, and that love has only grown every day since September 15th. It was the first day I had to hitch a ride to church with my priest, Father John Waleski, and he heard my confession on the way at 80 miles an hour, which is pretty cool, and went to Mass and sat in the front row and just sang my little heart out, because I'm a singer. I'm a traveling troubadour of truth. I'll sing to you sometime. And they say when you sing, you pray twice. So I like to pray a lot. And we got out of church that day, and I started telling people that I was called to a mission. So I told Becky Kelly, Chapman, Kansas, one of the nicest people in the world, and that's where it began, and it's come to this point where I'm talking in front of people in Greensburg, Kansas. I've been through here a lot. I remember when the tornado just flattened this town just like it did one of my two hometowns. Chapman, Kansas got hit by a really bad tornado. You might have heard of that one. Took years to rebuild, and so I know what, at least the people in this room, if you're from Greensburg, what you've seen, what you've been through, and many other towns within Kansas. But this is a great place, and more importantly, Kansans are great people. If you had great people in a terrible land, it's still great. And if you have terrible people in a great land, it's still terrible. And it's time for us to be good, to be holy, to be wise. Because we always talk about it's for the kids, it's for the next generation, but it really is for the kids. That is the point. The God that I serve said, go forth and multiply. That was his first command, and he hasn't rescinded it. And the left does everything they can, because they are the culture of death. They are the counterfeiters. They counterfeit our money. They counterfeit our sex. They counterfeit everything. They ruin everything they touch. So if you believe in the mission and see that change has come, this party needs revival. I mean, before we revolt, we need to revive. We need to be the Republicans we're supposed to be. And the swamp, Washington, D.C., every leftist-controlled place. I'm sure you've been to Seattle in your minds lately, or Minneapolis in your minds, because it's all they're flooding your mind with, is that the world is falling apart. And it's actually a very small group of people that are doing all of that. Most of us are sitting at home, doing our jobs, being productive, being Americans. And I want to expose the evil so we can expel the evil from our land, and we can eradicate it, hopefully. Because then we could all be one. Then we could have paradise. And when the Lord comes back, it would be a celebration and not a vindication. So I want to end with a quote. How much time do I have? 2. That was 3 minutes. Wow, that's amazing. There's some really wise men in this book, really smart men, and I'm going to read you some quotes. Benjamin Franklin said, "Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters." Isn't that exactly what we've seen? We haven't had a revolution in 244 years. Thomas Jefferson said, "The tree of liberty must be fed with the blood of patriots and tyrants." And he thought it should happen every 20 years. But he was quite a thinker. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. He knew how important independence was. And we have lost our independence because Kansans, our big fault is that we love government. Look how much government we've created just in this state of really free people. And see, government is a compound word. It means mind control. So these people knew that. They were brilliant. John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." So we must be moral. None of us are perfect. We're all sinners. I'm a formerly depraved sinner, But that doesn't mean we don't talk about it. What did the left tell us? Don't talk about religion, politics, or sex at the dinner table. So we didn't. We were mind controlled by the government, mind controlled by the MK, 4K, Ultra, HD televisions in our houses. But we can fix it because of this document. Because this is a living document that our founders, under the grace of God, and they admit that. That is what everything about this says. Is that if we will do right, then the Lord will heal our land. 2 Chronicles 7:14. Oh, I'm not on that one. I apologize. But this is important. If I can get to it. Let's see. How much time do I have? God bless all of you. Thank you.
This concludes the U.S. Senate portion of our forum this evening. I want to thank all of you gentlemen for coming. We are a small town, and we appreciate it when we have the attention of people who are willing to take their time to come and spend some of it with us. You are more than welcome to stay for the rest, but if you feel you need to be on the road, we understand that. We will take a small break before we go to the Kansas Senate part of the evening. You guys are free to take a break. If you catch one of these gentlemen and have a question you want to ask them, I'm sure they'll be glad to answer it. Thank you again.
Greensburg is so unique. There's no other place in the United States that anyone can tell you that is like Greensburg. You have to come here and you have to experience it.
It's a long, painful recovery, but I talk to a lot of people who say, yes, I'm going to rebuild. This was my town. This is where I grew up. It's a farming community here, and they have friends and family. They have connections to this town, and they want to see it survive.
After the disaster, there was never any question of whether we were going to rebuild. This is our home. We had the opportunity to rebuild a community and at the same time to share with other communities of what we've learned post-disaster and in the rebirth and the rebuilding of Greensburg. You know, don't make life decisions rapidly.
The story here is what's really important. The story is how did the town decide to rebuild itself? What a wonderful place in America to go to hear firsthand how you critically think whether you want to rebuild or not. How do you address a vision, and if you have a vision, come to a consensus on how to deliver that vision.
And it is so intriguing to come here and listen to the stories. And the leadership development that we've experienced here has just been phenomenal.
We bring people from all over America, all from different cultures and diverse backgrounds of industry, and we bring them once a year to Greensburg so they can relive the Greensburg experience.
You have a solitude and an experience that there's not really anything else going on. And it's that real small town, neighborly type of support that you have.
This is a small community, a residential community here. It lets the participants take a look at the value of community.
We in Greensburg really thrive on the value of community. And the reason for that is simply, in the planning process, we focused tremendously on what community meant to us. What was our character? What was our values? What's our morals? And how we utilize that in the rebuilding process.
After an initial concern about bringing people into rural America and teaching them, everybody just fell in love with the city of Greensburg. Every person who leaves here will tell you this was the greatest experience of their life.
I just didn't know what to expect. I flew in late, drove here, and the first day the experience was phenomenal. Because of the people that I got a chance to meet, seeing the town, seeing the small town community, just the experiences, they were phenomenal for me, so I'm so glad that I got a chance to come.
You have no sacrifice in quality and professionalism coming to Greensburg just because you're in a small community.
Whether it's the facilities themselves or the technology within inside those facilities, Greensburg can really offer a lot of options for groups and conventions. It's really still kind of unbelievable that this kind of technology exists in such a small town.
And one of the beauties you have here is state-of-the-art technical facility which can address any medium that they want and any type of presentation they want to make.
World-class capabilities. You would think that only those exist in large communities and in professional event and conference centers. Well, Greensburg has it right here. It is baked in, it is part of the infrastructure.
Greensburg has everything that New York City would have, Boston, Washington, D.C., Houston, Chicago, L.A., but it's all within walking distance. I mean, you literally walk 2 blocks and you have a state-of-the-art movie theater. You have this media center. You walk down and there's 2 or 3 restaurants that you can have. There is probably one of the better museums I've ever seen in my life in this town. A beautiful hotel that can handle about 40 individuals. To us, why we like this is because it's close to the Wichita airport. It has great bus transportation. You know, it just offers a lot of different things. But what I really like about it is it takes people out of their environment, puts them in an environment where they all are together collectively. And what you see in the course of these 2 days is the bonding of these individuals. And as more than 4 or 5 people said, it's actually been a life-changing experience for them.
We've been blessed with a unique opportunity. An opportunity to create a strong community that's devoted to family and fostering businesses and working together for future generations. We invite you to come visit Greensburg, share our experience, come grow with us.
Are you going to be traveling across Kansas in an electric car? Well, Greensburg has more than just one reason to stop. While you charge using a complimentary standard or Tesla charger, don't just sit around. Step inside the Big Well Museum or borrow a free bike to go out and explore our small community. See the Kiowa County Historical Museum and old-fashioned soda fountain, or take in an exhibit at the 547 Arts Center. Downtown, enjoy our local shops or grab a bite to eat. Stop in, charge up, and visit Greensburg.
At Kiowa County Pharmacy, you are more than a label on a bottle. more than a new prescription or a refill. Every patient is considered a friend.
Hi, my name is Julie Keaton, and I'm your local pharmacist at Kiowa County Pharmacy. In a small community, it's easy to become friends with all of our patients. We take pride in providing the medication you need so you don't miss those moments you need to be healthy for. We offer free mail and home delivery right to your door, and our prices are competitive with all the name brand stores. We accept most Part D and commercial insurance plans and handle the hassle of transferring your prescriptions for you. Next day arrival of medicines not in stock will help keep you on schedule. So come by and say hi. We're located in the Kiowa County Memorial Hospital.
Kiowa County Pharmacy. Your friend. Your pharmacy.
Morning Star Farms is a family-based farm owned and operated by Roger and Leslie Stotts and family. They are located just north of Greensburg, Kansas on Highway 183. The production of irrigated corn and alfalfa are their main specialties, but they also have soybeans, milo, and wheat, both irrigated and dryland. Morning Star Farms also produces, markets, buys, and sells high-quality alfalfa and hay products over much of the central United States. The success of Morning Star Farms is attributed to the combination of family effort and values, many key and talented employees and associates, and the reliance on the Lord's guidance and blessings. As a growing operation, Morning
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm going to step up here because those lights are awfully bright and I like to see the people that I'm talking to. So, as I said, I'm Alicia Schartz-Straub. I'm a fifth-generation native of Barton County, and I say native. My family has been in Barton County since before it became a county. I come from a bit large farm family. I'm the second of 6 children. My husband's actually from Pennsylvania. We have 3 daughters, Alexa, Elena, and Eliza. And we choose to live in Kansas. We choose to raise our kids here because there really isn't any better place to raise them. So a little history about me. I graduated from Ellenwood High School and graduated valedictorian in my class, actually. Went to Barton Community College for 1 year where I judged on a meats judging team. So even though I was a farm girl and had been involved in 4-H for 12 years, and because my brother had been on the meats judging team, I got involved. So I was the only female on a team of all boys, and that was quite interesting. But I learned so much about the other side of the cattle industry. We had cattle when I was a kid, and pigs, and a few sheep, and chickens, and everything else. But I learned a lot about the other side of it. So that was a really good experience. Then I transferred to Kansas State University, where I majored in apparel and textile marketing. I also then I graduated in 2000 and then went on to graduate school at K-State in apparel and textiles. I was a graduate teaching assistant, so I taught the clothing construction classes to the design students. I was not a design major. I was a business major with a minor in business, or a marketing major with a minor in business. So teaching the design classes was a little outside of the degree that I was going for, but because of my experiences in 4-H, that allowed me to teach those classes. So anyway, that basically put me through graduate school at K-State. Met my husband there, and then he's actually from Pennsylvania, like I said. So we lived in Pennsylvania for 6.5 years, and I saw the country from the other side. And I can tell you that there really isn't any better place than Kansas. And what I would like to do as a senator in Kansas is keep Kansas the kind of place that I grew up in. When we moved back, I thought, what is happening to our sweet little towns? We're losing our Main Street businesses. Things are not as easy as they used to be. And I really want to bring things back to the good, wholesome Kansas that we've had. So I'll talk more later. Thank you.
Yes. I'm Mary Jo Taylor, and I'm from Stafford, Kansas. I'm currently the senator for District 33, and as part of my intro, I'd like to explain why I'm here virtually instead of in person. I would much prefer to be there, obviously, or I hope that's obvious to you as to this method. What happened was on July 18th, I was in Scott City, and there was a meet and greet that was held by a supporter. And so obviously I was there and got a call last night, between a little after 7, and they said, well, we're sorry to tell you, but there was a hot COVID case at that event, and so you have been possibly compromised. And then as a result of that situation, another person had come down positive with the COVID. So got a notice from their health nurse, and so as a result, my husband and I, who were the attendees there, we are quarantining until Sunday, because that will be 14 days since we were first exposed to it. So out of an abundance of caution and concern for the people of Kiowa County and all of the district, I'm using this technology to come to you. In my before Senate life, I was an educator, I was a teacher, I was a high school principal, and I was a superintendent for 17 years. And it was all those experiences, as well as being a mother, I think, raising children in a great state, that prompted me to want to do this. This was not my original plan. This is not something I set out to do as a young person. It's something that has evolved, and I've enjoyed serving the people of the 33rd District and those of you in Greensburg and Kiowa County. Thank you.
For the questions that they received earlier, this one has been addressed a little bit by both of you, but I want you to have a chance to address it further. Why did you decide to run for the Kansas Senate? Go.
Kansas Senate. In 2014, I actually ran for Barton County Commissioner, and what drew me to run for that was I had served on the Barton County Extension Council Executive Board. It's a completely volunteer position, where I'm sure you have a board here in Kiowa County also. So anyway, I served on that board and got frustrated. Our commissioners didn't understand how extension budgets were formed. And I thought, what are the qualifications to be a county commissioner? And somebody said, there really aren't any qualifications. I'm running for that. We need a better voice there. So I ran for county commission, was elected in 2014. Then I was reelected to my second term in 2018. And shortly into 2019, our representative at the state, Greg Lewis, had to resign his seat due to health issues. I was elected in a special election to fill his seat, which meant that I had to resign my seat as a county commissioner. So I've never exceeded any term limit in any position I've ever held. So I've been in the House since March of 2019, and I just felt a calling to give our district a better, more conservative, farm-oriented, agriculture background voice for our district. I feel like our district is, they're my friends, they're my family. I grew up with these people. I know Western Kansas very well. And these are, like I said, these are my family. I want to represent you all. And like I said, I bring a more conservative voice to the legislature. On the Barton County Commission, you've probably received some mailers that said taxes went up while I served on the county commission. Well, that's true, but they didn't tell you how I voted. On September 14th, 2015, I voted against a 6 mil increase that year. It was a 3-2 vote, and I voted against it. Those mailers are half-truths. The taxes did go up, but not because of me. I voted against those things, and I carry that same kind of vote in the legislature also. So if you are conservative or fiscally conservative and want someone who's not going to just raise taxes every time there's a problem, then please vote for me. I've held the line on many other issues. I voted against the purchase of 4 brand new dump trucks on the county commission to the tune of $800 and some thousand. I voted against hiring an HR director at $87,000 per year. There are numerous instances that show my voting record of being fiscally conservative, and the mailers that you're receiving may not even be from my opponent. They're from a liberal civic league nonprofit organization out of Topeka. So, thank you.
Okay, so the question is, why did I run for Senate, or why do I want to run for Senate? I like to tell the story, but during my time as a superintendent, in the later years of that service, things were becoming very difficult for public schools, and I don't apologize for that being my life. Some people have different strengths, and I feel like in my job in that capacity, I am a community steward, was a community steward to all walks of life, regardless of who it was. I don't want to say I feel like everybody's mother, but I kind of do. But that's an aside. My husband and I were in the car and we were traveling, and it was March of 2016, and I was again complaining about the situation. What are we going to do? I didn't feel listened to by the Kansas legislators at the time, and felt like all I was doing was complaining. And so it came down to this code that we were raised with that says, well, you need to either stop complaining or try to fix the problem yourself, or be a part of the solution at least. And so it was that moment, I can go back to that moment in that conversation with my husband and say, that is the moment that I decided to try to make this effort. A lot of things have happened between then and now. It's probably miraculous that I even got elected, because I wasn't backed by anybody. I didn't have any special connections at all. I just went to the Stafford County Courthouse and signed up. That's what happened. So in my journey, I have been able to learn a lot about my district. District 33 has 10 entire counties and parts of 2 others. I have learned that while we all have a lot of the same about us, we have some differences as well, and that's good. That's fine. I think it's good to understand that, and I have come to know and enjoy every different culture and perspective of the District 33. So why am I running again? I think some good things were done in the last 4 years. Oddly enough, one of the reasons, and I'll talk about this later, but one of the reasons that I was frustrated was the fiscal trouble that the state was in at the time. They were having such a difficult time, the state, balancing the budget. And so that over the last 4 years has been to where we are now actually ending the budget with a little bit left over, as we are supposed to by constitutional mandate. And then we had the coronavirus. So it's as if we spent the last 4 years, working toward this solution, and then something completely out of our control happened. And here we are again looking at fiscal responsible people to go to Topeka and to take care of this. I feel like my experience as a superintendent, balancing a budget, not asking people for more.
Sorry.
Gotcha.
Okay, the next question, and we'll start with you, Mary Jo. After serving the time you have in the state legislature, what has impressed you the most, and what have you been disillusioned about?
Probably the thing that's most favorable with me, and the thing I enjoy the most, because people do come to my office. There's a lot of visitors, and that's the fun part. It's fun when people from the District 33 come and they have a concern, or they have Actually, some of them even have compliments, but some of them just want a bit of your time to explain their situation. And that's my favorite part of this job, and the part that I enjoy the most. Actually, even the most favorite is when they bring kids. I love it when the kids come to Topeka. I think every person in their growing years should visit their state capital, and certainly we have one of the best in the United States. And so that's just a plug for Kansas tourism there. But it's an outstanding historical building. What am I disillusioned about is where the power lies in Kansas politics. And I went in not really understanding that very well. I understand it a lot more than I used to. I understand that whoever is in power also has command over committees, and people that have had command over committees have command over what gets run through as far as bills and things like that. I've also become disillusioned that there are special interests that control things. And I think I'm not going to go through these, but this is one of my grandchildren's favorite ones. It's me fishing. It's one of like 15 cards that have been sent out against me and the work that I've done in the Kansas Senate, and either made fun of in some sort of a way or diminished the efforts that I feel like I've contributed. So that's the part that's a little disappointing, and I wish that we as a civil society didn't have to do to get reelected.
Repeating the question, after serving the time you have had in the state legislature, what has impressed you the most and what have you been disillusioned about?
I think the thing that impresses me the most is how many really awesome people we do have across the state of Kansas. I'm sorry, these lights just are they're terrible. We really do have some very good people, and I think you see that in the votes on various bills. But to be truthful, as a Republican, not just running as a Republican, but as a real Republican, we only have about 47 Republicans in the House, and there are 125 members in the House, but there are 84 that run as Republicans. So that's one thing that, we have some very, very good people, and people that represent the Republican platform and vote the Republican platform. And if we're going to have people who vote the other party, then just run. So run it as a Democrat so that we know how you're going to vote, or run as an independent so that we know that we don't know how you're going to vote. So that's one thing that has impressed me, is there are still some very good people in Topeka. And I think what I was disillusioned about is that that people think that the people still that they don't have a voice. That's not true. You still have a voice. The people still hold the power, and you hold that power at the ballot box. You absolutely do. And it is a huge challenge to educate a population of 75,000 people on all of the political issues going on. But that's what I try to do every day, is educate the voter. Here's the information. Go look it up, make the best decision that you can, or the decision that helps your friends and your family. So those are the things that I stand for, and I'll have all of you know that I have not sent out a single begging letter, and I call them begging letters. Legislators ask for money from PACs, from individuals, from businesses. I have not sent out a single letter asking for money. So any attack ads on my opponent have not come from my campaign. They have not been asked for. If those organizations are attacking my opponent, it's likely that they're attacking her voting record. And the same could be said for me. Other organizations could be attacking me. But if they want to attack my voting record, then say how I voted. The ads that have gone out in the mail lately have said, like I said, taxes went up. That's true, but they didn't tell you how I voted, and I voted against it. So just be careful, read your mail carefully, look into those organizations, see who they're coming from, and see what's behind it. When they give you a bill number, look it up and read the bill. Read the actual bill carefully to see why the person voted that way. There was actually a attack ad from my opponent's campaign saying that I voted against our schools, which is not true. Read it carefully. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with you, Alicia, on this question. What do you consider to be the 3 most important issues facing Kansas today, and why?
First and foremost, our freedom. Right now, I feel like we're living under a dictatorship and not a democracy. And we are a democratic republic, and you, the people, still hold the power. I am frustrated with every single executive order that comes from our governor's office. And I can tell you from just the short time that I served in the legislature, there is zero communication both directions. There is communication from the governor's office to the people or to the public or to the legislature, but there is not a dialogue back and forth. And that is very frustrating. I think I found out at the same time as all of you did that schools were going to be canceled for the rest of the year. That is not right. Those decisions should be made by your local school boards. And the legislature tried to pass measures to make sure that your local governments, that your county commissions, that your city councils, that your school boards still held the power, because we are still so diverse from one end of the state to the other. So I think that I'm so frustrated by living under what I feel like is a dictatorship, and in order to hold our governor accountable for the next 2 years, we are going to need some new voices in both the House and the Senate. And I can promise you that I will work very hard to speak for the people and not just allow a governor to dictate how we handle this situation. I don't want people to live in fear. I think that's probably the thing that concerns me the most is you should not be afraid. I want to be your voice of freedom and not fear. The only thing we have to fear is losing our freedom. Is it about up? Okay. I'm trying to think what else I can cover on. I think just while I've been in Topeka, I don't necessarily like staying in Topeka. I'll just say it that way. I like Western Kansas. I like Central Kansas, and having to stay in Topeka removes us from the people. I want to be out here with you so I understand the issues that you are dealing with. And things like this give us the opportunity to meet all of you face to face. So there's some of my cards out in the lobby. Pick those up. That is my cell phone number. I just ask that you not put it on the internet so China gets a hold of it. But you can reach me at that phone number. You can text me, call anytime, and I'll be happy to assist you with whatever is concerning you at the time. So thank you for your time tonight, and look forward to the next question here.
Mary. Click if you want to switch to a different microphone or speaker. Can we hear you now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I did the right
great.
thing.
Great, good. Thank you, Sue. So the question is the 3 most important issues facing Kansas. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the question.
Okay, thank you. Before I begin to answer that, I do want to address an issue that was raised about how Republican one is or isn't. I am a Republican, and I vote with the Republican leadership 96% of the time, and that is my voting record. So I just like to have that. I just like to say that on my behalf. As far as the three most important issues that are facing Kansas right now, I believe them to be, first of all, our economy and our state budget. That's one. The next one is that we need to have lower taxes on all things, but we need lower taxes. And thirdly, I'm concerned about our values. So I'd like to back up just a little bit and say a word about each of those. First of all, the economy and the state budget. Like I alluded to before, we thought we were coming into 2020 in better shape than before, only to have the coronavirus happen. And we can talk about how things were handled well or not. I'm definitely up for that conversation. But it has happened, and it has had a big effect on the economy, I would say, especially small business and entrepreneurs. And so I think it is our job as facilitators of entrepreneurs and small business owners and to promote jobs in the state and growth in the state. We need the flexibility to grow and innovate without having a lot of burdensome rules and regulations in place. I think that we need to be more open to innovation and flexibility as far as what's going on with our businesses. So that's the first thing, is our state budget, being very careful about how we handle that as we go along, and ensure that our tax dollars that are spent wisely, not on things that aren't. The second thing that I was concerned about is lower taxes, or you could say conversely that taxes are too high, and so that issue is troublesome. First of all, no matter where you go, people are concerned about property taxes, and that is our three-legged stool has become uneven, and so that's a problem that we have. I voted to repeal the broken tax cap lid that commissioners are laboring under right now. That did go through the Senate. It did not have the chance this legislative session to go through the House, but I think that would be something. I voted for a bill that had more transparency if it was necessary to raise county taxes, accountability to the people, and they would know that was going to happen in advance before they opened their tax letter. Okay.
Okay, and the final question, and before I ask the final question, Corla, I neglected to pick the Kansas Senate questions up from you, so if you could bring them up and around while they're answering their final questions, I would appreciate it. The final prepared question is, how did you think the governor has handled the pandemic, and what would you recommend to have been done differently?
So our governor, I think, is part of a National Governors Association. And across the nation, we have more liberal governors than we do conservative governors. And I think you've all probably seen it on the news that there's one standout governor in the state of South Dakota who has kept their state open. And they're actually faring far better than many of the rest of us because they've done so. I wish that our governor had left those decisions up to the local governments, left those decisions up to our local school boards, left them up to your county commissions and your city councils. But every chance she has had, she takes control. Like, she just takes the power from you. And that is the biggest concern. And that tax lid that my opponent was talking about, when I was a county commissioner, I think it was my first year as a county commissioner, I sat in a room of over 200 people, and a person by the name of Luke Bell with the Kansas Association of Realtors was touting this tax lid bill. Well, in theory, it sounds great that your county commissioners and your city council can't raise your property taxes, but guess who had their hands in the cookie jar? The state. And they took power away from you, the people, when they put that tax lid on the counties and cities. So I stood up and said, who's our leader here? People don't follow ideas. People follow people. And we as county commissioners did not have a leader. And that right then prompted me to run for positions. I served on a board, it was Kansas Legislative Policy Group, which is a bipartisan group of 36 western Kansas counties. I served on that, and I went to every meeting that I possibly could so that I understood the issues across the whole region. And that tax lid was it was bad policy. It really, just plain and simple, it was bad policy. The state had already handed over control of education finance to the Kansas Supreme Court. Your Kansas Supreme Court justices are not elected, they are appointed. And even when you vote to retain or dismiss those judges every 6 years, does anybody know who's up for, does anybody know any of the Supreme Court justices? I think I can name 2 of them. They're not elected, is my point. And the legislature has not fought hard enough to maintain control of education finance. So those are things that I will fight to make sure that the people maintain the power over those issues. And I'm trying to think, how much time do I have? 20 seconds. I'll just close with, I enjoy serving in the legislature, and I hope that I can be of even better service in the Kansas Senate. Thank you.
Okay, the question goes to how I think the governor handled the pandemic, correct? Or what perhaps she could have done differently. Hindsight is 20/20 for all of us, and I would not want to be the governor right now. Test people and their leadership skills, and the state absolutely does have a responsibility to public health policy. That being said, I would have preferred an approach that takes into account local control, and that local officials at the county level and school issues at the school board level and communities would have been deferred to. I was also very surprised when the announcement was made about schools closing, and nobody knew about it in advance. The legislature certainly did not know in advance that this was going to happen. We were all very surprised by it, and perhaps it doesn't take rural considerations into account, would be my feeling about that. I view the role of our state government as providing our local governments, whether it's counties or smaller entities, the tools that they need to respond appropriately. So I think more emphasis on using our federal money that came down, getting it distributed to local entities in the most efficient ways, the relief that people needed in the most efficient ways should have been prioritized more than they were. And so I think perhaps that our governor was more persuaded by what I would call metropolitan influences than rural.
Thank you. And we have one question for the Kansas Senate from the audience. Existing Kansas tax law precludes short-term Kansas filers from obtaining the federal tax cut. The Republican House and Senate passed a fix to this problem. Kelly veto held because 2 Republicans agreed that this money should be kept from taxpayers. In 2021, the Republicans will again sponsor this legislation, and Kelly will again veto it. Number 1, will you vote in support of the bill? And number 2, will you vote to override the Kelly veto? Mary Jo, do you want to take that first?
The bill that you're talking about, I think, went through our chamber twice. The first time did not provide well, it was tax relief that was needed, but we were also trying to settle a lawsuit. And my explanation of vote at that time was, I think it's a very good bill, but until we factor in what it's going to cost to settle this lawsuit, I did not vote in favor of it. And I absolutely did explain my vote at that time. So then it was vetoed, and it came back around again, and I voted in favor of the bill. And so, yes, the concept of the bill is correct, in my opinion, and if it comes up again in 2021, I will vote in favor of it.
Yes.
I believe the bill they're talking about was Senate Bill number 22 in 2019, and actually my opponent voted against that. It's the tax decoupling bill. When the standard deduction was raised from $12,000 to $24,000 and what have you in 2019, your small hometown Main Street businesses were, if they didn't itemize on their federal return, then they wouldn't be able to itemize on their state return. But that bill, Senate Bill 22, would have allowed those Main Street businesses to itemize on their state return, even if they didn't itemize on their federal return. So we all know that large corporations itemize their tax returns anyway. So this didn't affect big corporations. So why wouldn't my opponent have voted in favor of small Kansas businesses to itemize on their state return? The lawsuit that she's talking about, I believe, is the education finance lawsuit, which we should have fought harder for and not allowed the control to turn over to the Kansas Supreme Court, like I just spoke about a few minutes ago. So the thing is that I don't know that my opponent understands small town business. I don't know that she understands agriculture and livestock like I do. Like I said, I come from a 5th generation farm family, and I have siblings in the seed business, in agriculture, that work at the community college, who's a mail carrier. I have experience with just my immediate family of siblings in various sectors. My mom worked as a para at the grade school for 17 years. So we don't have the same kind of ideas about how things work as some legislators do. We're like you. We're normal, just average Kansans. And if we can just somehow get that voice to Topeka, I think we can turn our state around and make sure we're headed in the right direction again. And we have to have somebody who's not afraid to stand up and take a stance when the time comes, and not side with the governor every chance that they get. Somebody really has to stand up to this governor. We are in for a rough 2 years. And when Governor Kelly was elected, I said, put your big girl panties on, because it's going to be a rough ride. I knew that 4 years under her rule would be difficult. And then a pandemic came along, and I think we're only seeing the beginning of it. We have a tough job to do. And we already voted on a budget at the end of the session in March. I voted against that budget. I was one of only 16 people in the House, one Democrat also, fiscally conservative Democrat, who voted against that budget because I didn't want to hand the reins over to a dictating governor. I wanted to make sure that the power still lies in the people's hands. Thank you for your time tonight.
We'll have a 5-minute concluding speech. We began with you, Alyssa. So you had the first, you'll go last this time because you started, and Mary Jo will answer this question.
This are concluding remarks?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you all for letting me use this option to be there as opposed to having to miss for safety reasons. And I want to thank you to the Republican the Republican Central Committee, the Starlight Theater, and the Kiowa County Media for putting on this event tonight. I know it was a lot of work. I do want to just make one comment. I do not apologize for standing up for public education, and that is at the core of what I stand for. So I just won't apologize for standing up for that. Anyway, in conclusion, 4 years ago, in 2016, I ran because of my concern for my home, for Kansas. Things were falling apart, and it was largely due to fiscal concerns in our state. We had increased the sales tax by 2%. We had 3 credit downgrades. We had 4 years of budget shortfalls, not knowing how the budget holes were going to be filled. And then we have found out since then that they were filled by taking from other funds and putting them into the general fund, leading to the demise of the transportation fund and some others as well. And then we had 9 years of budget cuts. This was an experiment. The majority of Kansans voted for it. I did too. It did not work. And so to have to go to work and try to figure out solutions was what we have been doing for the last 4 years. And I think there's been some good solid work done. We have addressed infrastructure. For that, we have a transportation bill that is laudable. I think that they have worked very hard to put that together. We are working on better conditions in our prisons than there were before. We are getting better at serving children that are in foster care than we had before. That situation is greatly improved, and we have ended some of the stagnation in public education as far as its ability to grow and serve our communities. And so on that, I'm proud of what's been accomplished, along with in collaboration. I didn't do it all alone, obviously, but in collaboration with my colleagues. These were hard things to happen. Took a lot of give and take and back and forth. And I think that our state is in a better position right now than it would be had we not done this. And so with that, I would like to again thank our host for this evening, and I would ask for your vote on or before August the 4th. Thank you.
So I think one of the most important things that I'll have to tackle if elected to this Senate seat is obviously the budget, and because of what's going on right now. But when my opponent talks about supporting education, I absolutely support education. I have 6 years of college also. What people don't know about me is that my 3 children have never spent a school year in a brick and mortar public school. We have either private homeschooled or public virtual schooled our kids for the last 13 years. My oldest daughter is here with me tonight, so I'm gonna brag a little bit. Without spending a single day of her school years in a brick and mortar public school, she has somehow managed to become president of the State 4-H Youth Leadership Council. She is elected not just by her peers, but by adults who have selected the top leaders in our 4-H program across the state. So, we have a broken education system in Kansas. Why would we throw good money after a bad, broken system? What we need to do is fix the system first. Stop yielding the power to the Kansas Supreme Court. They are not elected. We have good schools in Kansas. We have good teachers in Kansas. What we have is a broken financial program to fund education, and we can fix it. I absolutely believe we can fix it, and I think that this pandemic may force us to. I don't believe that the state is going to be able to fund that base aid per pupil, and that base aid per pupil doesn't help school districts with declining populations. I think all of us across this district, I think all 12 counties across the 33rd Senate District have declining populations. Barton County's population in the next 20 years is forecasted to decrease by 20%. Stafford County's population is forecasted to decrease by 37%. I'm sorry I don't have the numbers for Kiowa County, but I don't think that any of us really want to know them. So what we can do is fix our broken systems and make sure that there's still a thriving community for our kids and our grandkids and my great-grandkids to still be raised in. And like I said, there is no better place than Kansas to raise your kids. So I'm so proud to be a Kansan, to represent you all in the House. Well, some of you in the House. Some of you aren't in my district, I'm sure. But I would be even prouder to represent you in the Kansas Senate. And I'm not here for personal reasons other than to make sure that there's a future for my family and for yours. So if you would like a voice for freedom and not fear, please vote for me on August 4th. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
This concludes the Kansas Senate portion of our format this evening. Please join me in thanking both candidates for coming this evening and sharing time with us. Time is a valuable commodity, and we appreciate both of yours. Thank you. We'll have a few-minute break. Well, thank you.
The Twilight is a multi-use facility. We present movies, stage plays, concerts. We serve as the auditorium for the Kiowa County school system. Another specialty of ours is business presentations and conferences.
As I go and attend other conferences now, this is the benchmark that I measure those against. Sitting in the theater, in the chairs, in the comfortable chairs, having the big screen in front of you, the acoustics, it all comes together and it's a unique environment.
Our partnership with the Kiowa County Media Center gives us the capability to provide you with multi-camera filming so that this presentation can be sent live anywhere in the world. It's state-of-the-art.
Well, we find great value in the Twilight Theater because it gives us an opportunity to teach classes there, to watch movies, to interact with the community, and to hold receptions there. It's just a great facility.
Everybody who comes to the Twilight Theater, whether it's a conference or a movie for the first time, school kids for their first time in a movie theater, walk away amazed. Most of all, the Twilight staff are here to make your event the most memorable and successful it can be.
Are you going to be traveling across Kansas in an electric car? Well, Greensburg Are you going to be traveling across Kansas in an electric car? Well, Greensburg has more than just one reason to stop. While you charge using a complimentary standard or Tesla charger, don't just sit around. Step inside the Big Well Museum or borrow a free bike to go out and explore our small community. See the Kiowa County Historical Museum and old-fashioned soda fountain, or take in an exhibit at the 547 Arts Center. Downtown, enjoy our local shops or grab a bite to eat. Stop in, charge up, and visit Greensburg.
We are at the commissioner part of the forum this evening. Thank you for coming and thank you for tuning in for this evening. I know it's long, but little information one night before an election is almost the least we can do. So thanks for hanging in there with us. We will start alphabetically with the introductory questions for the commissioners that are running for the 3rd Commissioner District. We'll start with you, Brent. Yeah.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first question, as it is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, my fault.
Okay. Boy, almost wish I still had my cap on, but my name's Brent Ralston. I live in Mullinville, lived there all of my life except while I was in college, so been around quite a while. I am a farmer and a rancher, and been doing that, still doing that, and so some of the topics that have been discussed this evening have really hit home for this area, and my wife Cindy is here tonight. I've just been married for a couple of months now, and so if you can have time, get a chance to know her. I don't know what else to say. I guess that's it.
Going now? Okay, thank you, Sue, and the Republican Committee for putting this together. I am a candidate for the Kiowa County Commission to represent District 3. District 3 is from the Ford Kiowa County line east to Highway 183, and then it jogs over on Old 54 and includes Greensburg to Bay Street. Elvira Kane and I have been married for 52 years. We like to say we met in the nursery in the Bethel Mennonite Church, southwest of Greensburg. We have 2 children, Carrie, Kiowa County Senior Center manager, and Brad, who works for a civil engineering firm in Rogers, Arkansas. We have 2 grandsons, Andy and William Kyle, and we live on the old Earl Liggett place at 1006 South Cherry in southwest Greensburg. Elvira grew up in the Mullinville, Greensburg area, and I grew up at Wilmore. In 2006, we got together with some people from Haviland and built Home Again Senior Living in Haviland. Elvira recently retired from managing the Care and Share store for the Ministerial Alliance here in Kiowa County, and I represented Kiowa County District 1 on the County Commission from 2010 through 2018. I manage the family farm, and we have a small cow herd.
Good evening. My name is David White. I was born and raised in Kiowa County. After I graduated from high school, I went to college, got a degree in biology and a minor in math. I went on and I got a master's in counseling. I taught school in Dighton and Cheney before I came home to Kiowa County. I've taught in Kiowa County for 31 years. My wife, Kathy, and I, we raised 3 children here. 2 of them followed in my footsteps. They became teachers, and they both taught in Kiowa County. Zachary moved on to Kansas City in hopes of finding a bride. I'm happy to announce he did. So that was a success for him. Steph is still here with her husband Grant and their 3 little girls, Isley, Rin, and Kaya. They live on the farm where I grew up, where my dad built the house in 1950. My mom and him raised my sister and I. My wife and I raised our 3 children there, and I was pretty tickled when she asked me if it would be all right for her to move to the farm, and that was the 4th generation with her kids to live in the same house. Being grandpa is the best job I ever had. If there's a better one, I've never found it yet. For those reasons, I have a vested interest in Kiowa County. I'm interested in what happens, and I want nothing but the best. And I have no axes to grind with anyone.
Okay. The first question to go this evening, and we will start with, let's start with John. As a county commissioner, what do you see as your role in helping economic development in the county?
I believe economic development that occurs organically or by growing existing businesses is most sustainable. That is what we did when we developed Home Again Senior Living in Haviland. It was built to fill a need in the community and has done that very well, and a number of jobs were created as well. Recently, the installation of fiber-based broadband has greatly improved internet service and makes working from home possible. We already have folks in the county doing that and need to attract more. Elvira and I have had guests on our Airbnb from all over the U.S. and from several foreign countries. Invariably, they rave about our wide open spaces and the spectacular sunrises and sunsets. We have had guests stay a month at a time as they work remotely, and they eat in our restaurants, shop in our local businesses, and pay sales and guest taxes and help fund the local economy. Kiowa County has a number of attractions that make it a great day trip destination. They include M.T. Liggett's Folk Art, the Round Barn near Mullinville, the Big Well, Arts Center, the theater, and downtown Merchants. Kiowa County is a great place to come and visit for several days, and we need to capitalize on our many assets. Big asset to Kiowa County is a neighborhood revitalization tax rebate program, which has been quite successful in attracting folks wanting to build homes here. So to answer the question about the County Commission's role in economic development, the best thing the Commission could do for economic development is to renew the tax rebate program each time it expires as it does periodically.
I'm going to answer that question a little bit by a boy or a man that moved into this community, that moved into Forrest Lee Einzel's and Charlie Einzel's house. John Taylor, he's a great-grandson of Charlie Einzel. He's a lieutenant commander for special ops. He was a special ops officer in the Navy. He came up to me one day and he said, "You know what you have in this county that I have never experienced anywhere I've ever been?" He said, "You have fiber optics that's the fastest I have ever seen. I've lived in Maryland, I've lived in Virginia, I've gone to Washington, D.C., I have communicated back and forth with different military offices," and he says, "Nothing like this have I ever seen." Do you think people know that in the state of Kansas? I'm convinced there's a group of people in the age bracket from 25 to 35 that need to know what we have to offer. They can do their jobs from home and have the small town environment that goes with it. That's only in Greensburg right now, but they tell me they're going to try to get it to Mullinville and to Haviland. That would be awesome for this county, and we need to let people know those types of things, because if we do, we have a chance to attract people, and people pay taxes and spend money on businesses, and that's what we need. You ever been driving down the highway and you ever had a pop-up show up on your phone that says cafe 10 miles in a town? There's no reason we can't do that either. We have a media center that we can use to do those types of things to help us, to promote the restaurant in the restaurants in Greensburg and Mullinville, the M.T. Liggett Shrine. There are lots of opportunities if we take advantage of them. The other one I want to mention is this. Education can be paid for by different individuals. John Deere has a program in which they fund a student that goes to a diesel mechanics program and come back and gives them time for however much money they gave them. We struggle sometimes for nurses around here, and be nice if we had more doctors too, and if we attracted the right people. We have people in this community that go to school for those things, and if we would help them financially, they could help us. And who knows, when they come back, they might end up staying here for the rest of their life.
I think one of the things, I've never been a commissioner, but I think one of the things that would come along with that job would be overseeing and taking a good look at everything and see, is this something that makes sense? Is it financially responsible to do this? And look at things a little bit like that from a business standpoint of view. I think there's probably a lot that I don't know about in this county. What Dave and John have mentioned are excellent things. There are a lot of things in this county that probably a lot of people aren't aware of and maybe need to be, and I guess that would be my answer to that question.
The next question is, discussion of taxes and services provided are not always linked together. If your platform is to reduce taxes or not raise them, what county services would you eliminate and why?
I believe we can hold the line on taxes and even, is this on?
I think so. Just,
okay.
yeah.
I believe we can hold the line on taxes and even reduce them by making wise choices without eliminating or reducing services. We do just that as farmers and ranchers and business owners when drought and low prices come along. We make adjustments to our spending and cash flows. Year by year, the mill levy edges up. Not a lot, but it seems the trend is always up a little, and it adds up over the years. A transplant from Arkansas told me recently that when they shopped for a house here, property taxes were a major consideration. Taxes on the house they purchased here are more than twice what the much larger house they sold in Arkansas were. I think we can reverse that trend. One way to do this is to make small adjustments over several years. A 1.5% reduction in county budgets over, say, 8 years could result in a 12% reduction in county property taxes. I believe any county budget could sustain a 1.5% yearly reduction in budget and still provide adequate services to the citizens of the county.
Dave?
First of all, I want to say the foremost job of any county commissioner is to fund your county. You don't want to underfund your county and come up in December and wonder how you're going to come up with that money. You're going to have to go to bonds, you're going to have to borrow money, because then you have that same debt to carry forward with the expenses from the next year. Nobody likes paying taxes, and nobody probably whined about it more than me, because I'm going to tell you, I pay my fair share of taxes between Edwards County and Kiowa County. I've gone to the last 5 or 6 commissioner meetings, and truthfully, it changed my mind. It changed my mind about there are a lot of things that this county has and services that we receive that are important. And I'm not sure which ones you look at and say you're going to go away with. I'm not sure which road you're going to say we're not going to be able to take care of. And the things in the county, the library, the senior citizens, the media center, the Iroquois Center, the conservation district, the road and bridge, the sheriff. Who do you want to cut out? And then wonder why you don't get the services for it because we cut the budget on them. You have to spend be financially responsible, and it's like running a business. And I did that for 30 years. I was a farmer and rancher. You know, every year the prices are going to eke up just a little bit on repairs because that's what they do. They raise the prices, and you have to adjust for that. I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to be done. How many of you really think gas and diesel prices are going to be $2 4 years from now? And if you're budgeting for $2 gas, you might have a very sad awakening when that time comes.
I think one of the things that I would agree, I don't know that anything needs to be eliminated, but in any kind of business or entity like that, need to look at it and see if there's adjustments that can be made. Maybe it's increasing here or trimming back a little bit here. But all of the services, I think all of us in this room, you know, we all utilize many of the things that taxes pay for in this county. Absolutely necessary. I don't know that they always need to go up. I do know that things cost more all the time, but somebody's got to be the first one to start reducing things, or at least hold things still for a little bit, so that things just don't rise, get out of control expensive. So I think isn't any one certain thing that needs to be eliminated. Everything just needs to be looked at and dealt with responsibly, logically, common sense, and I would agree with that, with both of you guys.
I mean, you can't clap for them. Just saying.
Well, absolutely, and I don't think you can just have make a blanket statement for every road in the county. We've got roads in our pastures that deteriorate all the time, and some of them are probably deteriorated a little bit more today with the rain. But you deal with the worst ones first and look at it and try to use common sense on what would work. What if the road is a problem, take a look at it and see, can it be corrected? And if it can, what do we need to do to correct it? I think just a common sense look at things like that, and not particularly a blanket solution for every road in the county. They all probably have their different problem spots.
There's two jobs I wouldn't want in this county, and one would be the road superintendent, and the other would be the appraiser, because you're never very popular. There's different projects that go on in a county. Right now, I think the main emphasis is being placed on the blacktops. Blacktops are important. You don't want to let those fall apart, because if you do, by the time it costs to rebuild them, it may be pretty prohibitive. But I will say this. My road going to the farm, sometimes I swear if you put a tub with a rock in it, you could wash your clothes going up and down the road, because it's that rough. And when I called Jay and I've talked to him about it a little bit, it's been my experience, he comes out and he deals with it as quickly as he can. The whole key on a road is, if you have a problem, you need to call the person in charge. Probably the truth of the matter is, for me, I'm not going to micromanage anyone. If they don't do their job, they don't keep their job. And that's the way I was raised. But if you communicate with Jay, I have always seen that he will respond to it. Sometimes we talk about ditches. In the sand, sometimes I've seen ditches dug, and the wind comes up and blows the sand off the road back into those ditches, and it fills it up. I've watched people farm off the edge of their field down into their ditch. And they try to tell you, the reason I do it is I don't want those weeds. Most of those weeds are going to fall straight to the ground. And it's became quite a bit harder to spray the weeds in a ditch because of the cotton that's come into the community. Cotton's very sensitive to 2,4-D and to other chemicals that you use. So you're limited on what can happen. And I've seen more mowers going out trying to mow the weeds, but they can only reach out so far. Tough job? Absolutely. You just got to keep trying and doing the very best that you can.
Absolutely, there's hope for many of our road ditches, as Dave said, have been farmed in or have naturally filled in due to blowing dirt and sand, and have turned into what I call canals for the water to collect in. This excess material in ditches should be pulled up onto the road periodically so that the roadbed is higher than the ditch, has a crown in the middle, and allows water to run off the sides of the road instead of running down it. The sandhill roads present a great challenge. Many are much lower than the adjacent fields, as the roadbed has been cut down over the years by grading and wind. Great care must be exercised when elevating them. Road and Bridge has a hay grinder that can be used to grind CRP hay and blow it onto the bare ditches of rebuilt roads to stop the soil from blowing. We should make better use of that machine. We also need to get on a schedule to pull excess material out of ditches. If each grader operator would be responsible for pulling 10% of his territory's main road ditches each year, in 10 years or so, all the main roads would be rebuilt and water would run off of them instead of down them.
The final question that they had sent to them, if with your permission, I want you to include that in your final statement. And I have one question from the audience that I will ask, and it's for all of you. So are you all right to use the question, what is your vision for Kiowa County, in part of your concluding remarks? Or do you have longer? I'm just trying to. Are you fine? Are you fine, John? Okay. You'll have 5 minutes for a conclusion. Okay. The question from the audience is county commissioner candidates. After cutting commissioner salaries, what will be your next cut? Whoever wants to can start with that one.
Go ahead and start. As I said a while ago, I don't know that there's any one thing that needs to be eliminated. I don't know why commissioner salaries couldn't be decreased personally. Almost every governing board in this county is done free. You know, you look at the school board members and the member hospital board, all kinds of boards, governing boards in this county, and it's done volunteer. Lots of good people on a lot of the boards, and I hadn't thought about that, but there's no reason why a commissioner couldn't be reduced. There may be other areas that could be trimmed some also without eliminating. And there's been a lot of good points brought up this evening about, you know, some of the different things that could be done to improve roads and make people aware of some of the things that are in Kiowa County. And I think as far as a vision for this county, I'd like to see it be a good, healthy county financially. And also with all the different things that are already here. There's a lot of things that are really good, and there's no reason why they can't be better. You know, there's always room for improvement, and we need to look for those areas as well to make improvements. That's what I see. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Probably the answer for me on what would be my next cut, don't do your job well. In my world, Forsley Einsel was my mentor. She told me one time, and I'll never forget it, I asked her for a little better deal on the things, and she said, David, she said, family is family and business is business. And don't you ever confuse the two. There was never a truer statement made to me as a young man going forward in the business world. That would be my first cut, would be people that don't do their job or they're replaced. I want to say a little bit about the vision. I see this county as a safe, happy place to raise kids and grow old. I see there's a chance that we could help our tax situation if we can attract more people. But if we don't do something to attract more people, we're going to continue doing the same thing that we've done forever. Watch the communities get smaller and smaller and smaller. And people are going to complain about taxes because they have to pay more of them. Now they'll own more because there's fewer people. But fewer people isn't, in my opinion, a good thing. It won't happen overnight. When I decided to run, I've gone to every county commissioner meeting. I went to a city meeting in Mullinville, and I've watched the live streaming of a Greensburg meeting. I truthfully thought before I put my name in the hat, I knew quite a bit about what went on in Kiowa County. Sheesh, was I ever wrong? I didn't have a clue what was going on. I've had my eyes opened to many things. The only thing I'll tell you is sometimes I think differently than other people. And I'm certainly not afraid to bring those ideas up for other people to discuss and to kick around. Doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean they're wrong. It means that it's just a conversation that should happen among people. You need to tax people responsibly and spend prudently, but always fund your county. I ran my own business for 30 years.
Just a little logistic thing I think that's happened. I didn't make myself very clear. I think you, Brent, had some final remarks with that too, or do you have more to say in a final statement? Okay. We're going to give you 2 more minutes because I think you've kind of combined those. And then when it's your turn, we'll figure out what you're going to do. How will that be? Okay? All right.
Anyway, I started out 30 years ago, and I didn't have much of anything. And over time, things ended up going in a positive direction. My father-in-law told me one time, if you can manage $10, you can handle 10,000. If you can handle $100, you can manage 100,000. And there's a lot of truth to that also. And I think I've proven that over time. I am retired. I have the time and I have the energy for the position. And I have a vested interest in the community. The one thing I do want to say, I want to say Ron Freeman, who is the commissioner that's stepping down, and he put a lot of time and effort into it. And that's what it takes, is people to make a commitment to do the job. I taught school for a long time. The school and the kids gave me a lot. I'd like to do one last thing for Kiowa County. I'd like to give you my time and my effort. I feel like we're the luckiest people in the world to live in Kiowa County or in the Midwest, and we don't put up with what's going on the 2 coasts. Thanks for your time and for listening, and for the Republican Forum for putting this on.
Do you want 5 minutes? For the vision and your concluding statement, and also answer after cutting commissioner salary, what will be your next cut?
Well, as I said before, I would try to get a 1.5% reduction in all the county budgets, all the departments. I think that's something that could be done without a lot of pain and would not cut any services. As I said, in 8 years, that would be around 12%. And that may be pie in the sky, but that would be my aim. Now, for my vision for Kiowa County, we are all aware of the civil unrest that is happening in many of our major cities. That and COVID-19 virus is prompting many employers to rethink their workspace arrangements. Some companies no longer require employees to travel to an office to work at a computer to do work that could be done more safely and efficiently at home. Of course, in our technological world of today, that home can be anywhere, even on the plains of Kansas. As the civil unrest and COVID-19 stubbornly refuse to go away, people are fleeing the large cities. Could Kiowa County have an opportunity to accommodate a few of them? Perhaps we could create a distance work center with super-fast broadband service and top-notch office machines. Some of these have already been created in rural areas outside of cities. I'm thinking maybe the Mullinville School Building or the incubator building here in Greensburg. We have excellent schools here, the Media Center where our students learn media production and opportunities students elsewhere don't get to experience, the Art Center, and this wonderful building we're in now. We have the Big Well Museum, which is so well done, access to health care, the pharmacy, and the senior center. The pool, great restaurants. We have a quality of life in Kiowa County that is on par with many urban areas. We should capitalize on our many assets. That is my vision for Kiowa County. In conclusion, why should you vote for me? During my previous 2 terms on the commission, I worked toward common sense solutions to the problems we faced. My number 1 priority will be taxpayer interests and to see that the county runs as efficiently as possible. I would very much appreciate your vote. Thank you.
This concludes the commissioner part. Oh, sorry. You're not the first one I've left out tonight, so don't feel bad. Brent, 2 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you. I would like to say if there's any of you that have never served on some of the boards in this county, you should. It's a really great way to learn more about whatever board that may be, whether it's a hospital board or school board or fair board, or there's many things to do that. I think we are very, very fortunate and blessed to live right here. I've said that to several people lately. I just can't think of any place else I'd rather be. There's a lot of trouble going on, and maybe things aren't perfect right here, but they're a whole lot better than they are in other places. I would like to say that I like to listen. I think it's always good the more opinions and ideas that you have when you're facing an issue or a problem, the more people you talk to, the better chances are of coming up with a positive solution. If I was a commissioner, I would be more than happy to listen to anybody with whether they've got positive remarks or negative ones. That's fine. Be willing to listen to those, talk to you about them, and a lot of people have my phone number already. I'm in the phone book, and my cell phone number is probably floating around about everywhere anyway. But anyway, that would be one of the things. I think it's real important to listen to everybody, hear what they've got to say, get their opinion on it, and see if that's be something that would benefit our county. Thank you very much.
Candidates, and we will have a short break. Sheriffs are our final people this evening. Thank you. This is longer than I intended, but I think it's important. Thank you for sticking around. See you back here in about 3 minutes. John.
The Twilight is a multi-use facility. We present movies, stage plays, concerts. We serve as the auditorium for the Kiowa County school system. Another specialty of ours is business presentations and conferences.
As I go and attend other conferences now, this is the benchmark that I measure those against. Sitting in the theater, in the chairs, in the comfortable chairs, having the big screen in front of you, the acoustics, it all comes together and it's a unique environment.
Our partnership with the Kiowa County Media Center gives us the capability to provide you with multi-camera filming so that this presentation can be sent live anywhere in the world. It's state-of-the-art.
Well, we find great value in the Twilight Theater because it gives us an opportunity to teach classes there, to watch movies, to interact with the community, and to hold receptions there. It's just a great facility.
Everybody who comes to the Twilight Theater, whether it's a conference or a movie for the first time, school kids for their first time in a movie theater, walk away amazed. Most of all, the Twilight staff are here to make your event the most memorable and successful it can be.
Are you going to be traveling across Kansas in an electric car? Well, Greensburg has more than just one reason to stop. While you charge using a complimentary standard or Tesla charger, don't just sit around. Step inside the Big Well Museum or borrow a free bike to go out and explore our small community. See the Kiowa County Historical Museum and old-fashioned soda fountain, or take in an exhibit at the 547 Arts Center. Downtown, enjoy our local shops or grab a bite to eat. Stop in, charge up, and visit Greensburg.
Now I'm on? Okay. Thank you again for coming tonight. We are at the concluding race. I have learned the older I have gotten that the government that is most important is the government closest to the people. We just heard from our commissioner candidates, and now we will hear from our sheriff's candidates. You each have 3 minutes for an opening statement, and alphabet order. Kendall, you have 3 minutes, followed by Chris with 3 minutes.
Okay, is this thing working? All right, my name is Kendall Oakman, and I'm a candidate for sheriff here in Kiowa County. Just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up here in Kiowa County. I graduated from high school, Haviland High School, 1988. After I got out of high school, went to Seward County Community College. Graduated from there with a Associate's of Science degree in criminal justice. Started my law enforcement career in February of 1990 at Ulysses Police Department. So over my law enforcement career, 28 years, I have held many positions with several different departments, and so I've worked my way up, I guess, through the ranks. Started out as a patrolman, field training officer, deputy sheriff, patrol sergeant, detective, lieutenant, undersheriff, sheriff, and I spent 4 years with the Attorney General's office as a special agent. 13 of those 28 years I spent right here in Kiowa County. Spent 7 years as the undersheriff here in Kiowa County, and I spent 6 years as the sheriff here. Personal life, I've been married to my lovely wife, Lorena. She's out here in the audience for almost 16 years now. We have 3 boys. Cash is our youngest, and he's 10 years old. Braden is my middle one. He is 18 years old. And Roy's my oldest. Shows how old I am. He's going to be 27 this year. So when I'm not working, I like to spend my time with my family, my horses, and I've got a set of mules I'm breaking right now. So that's just a little bit about me.
Hello, is anybody else hot? I am. Maybe it's because I'm husky. There's a story behind that. A couple of weeks ago, a lady caught me at Quick Shop and said, "Ma, you're a handsome husky guy." I said, "Ma'am, it's okay. You can call me chubby or fat. I'm good with that." Anyway, my name's Chris Tedder. I've been the sheriff here for 6 years. Enjoyed every bit of it. I am married to Jody. She's an RN at the hospital. Assistant DON, sorry. She's the assistant DON at the hospital now. I've got 4 kids, all of which have grown up here. My youngest is 15. She was born when I started here, just shortly thereafter. I've worked in Kiowa County for 14 of the last 16 years. I've been in law enforcement since 1995. It's been a great career. It's had its ups and downs. I'm sure everybody's heard about my latest bad deal. I've accepted it and I've moved on. I've claimed responsibility. I have not played the victim. I've accepted it and I've moved on with the sheriff's office. It's been a rough time, but we all got through it. We moved on. I think everybody probably knows my family. Rylan and Colby played ball, everything here. Remington grew up here. Cambry's here now. But that's just a little bit about me. Like I said, I started law enforcement in '95. I too have had just about every position available. Here in Kiowa County, I started as a deputy in 2004, moved up to detective. I did leave for a term while I was a detective because I was offered to better myself a position as undersheriff with another department. When the position came open here to return to Kiowa County as sheriff, put my name in the hat. Luckily, I was appointed, and we've enjoyed it. It's been a great time. We'd like to continue serving Kiowa County for the rest of my career. I look to retire here. I don't intend to leave. Good or bad, I intend to stay here. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, we'll start with you, so don't put that down there. Why did you decide to run for Kiowa County Sheriff this year?
Come on now. See, that's a really good question. 6 years in the same position does have its trying times. Luckily, I've put together a team that has stood behind me and helped me through some of the rough times. My team is excellent right now. The guys we have on right now are great. A lot of you know some of them. A lot of you will meet some of them. We have deputies in the schools. We have guys out on the streets all the time. I've been here for like I said, 14 of the last 16 years, and I've got many friends here. I don't want to go anywhere else. I'd like to stay here, keep serving the citizens of Kiowa County. We've bought a house. You know, we just like to stay here. We're invested in the community. Still have a child in the school. That's why I decided to run. I'd like to continue serving Kiowa County.
In 2014, I resigned as the Kiowa County Sheriff. That was my second term. I'd been elected. I resigned to take a job with the Kansas Attorney General's office as a special agent. I took that job because I wanted to better my law enforcement career. And I believed that that job was going to do that, and it did. It was a good job. I loved it. The only thing I didn't love was that it took me away from my family and it took me away from my home. I spent 4 years with the Attorney General's office. I was the only agent in the state that was working livestock investigation. And I traveled all over the state and surrounding states and worked livestock thefts. Didn't ever get to go home. I found myself in a motel room 3 and 4 nights a week and never got to see my family. I did that for 4 years, and I just decided that that part of my career was not that important to me. My family was. So I gave up that position, and at the time I was living in Larned. My office was out of Great Bend, and so I gave up that job and went to work for the sheriff's office in Pawnee County. Election came up, and I decided I want to come back home. This is my home. I grew up here. My family's still all here, and I'm just ready to come back home. That's why I ran.
Okay, we'll start with you. The next question, what role do you see the sheriff and his deputies having in the development of good character of the youth of this community?
Okay, is it on now? Yep. Okay, everybody knows that obviously young people today are very vulnerable from a lot of different directions, from a lot of different people. I mean, people can touch them from so many locations and so many places. I can't even think of that when I was a kid. We didn't have that kind of access. People couldn't get a hold of you the way they can today. So there's so many people that can influence them. There's a lot of programs that are out there right now. Law enforcement has a lot of ways that we try to get into the schools. We have programs that puts us in connection with the children in a structured environment. That way we can build those relationships with them. Great programs. I love them. It gets us in there. It lets us build relationship with those kids. But I think another part of that is that we forget about our day-to-day relationships that we should be building with those kids. And I'll give you an example. I was probably 10, 12 years old, had a motorcycle, shouldn't have been driving it. I was probably on a city street in Haviland, and I'm driving down the street, and who pulls up beside me? H.B. Scott. And probably some of you in here know H.B., maybe a lot of you don't. H.B. Scott was a local officer for Kiowa County Sheriff's Office. He later became the magistrate judge here. HB pulls up beside me, had his window down. Mere thing, he looked over at me and said, "Kendall, you need to take that thing home." I said, "Yes, sir," and I drove home. Wasn't a big deal. I went home, but it affected me. I really think that that was part of the reason that I became a law enforcement officer later. And I look at that, and I think how subtle that was that happened and what that meant to me. HB, when he pulled up beside me, he didn't intend, I'm sure his mind thought wasn't, I'm going to be a mentor today. I'm going to be I'm going to try to change this kid's life today. That's not what it was. He just did his job, and he treated me right. And I think that's what we need to do on a daily basis. We just do our job and treat people right, and that will show. And the kids will pick up on that. They will see that, and that will help them develop their character. And the stuff that we do day to day, and that stuff that they see, is going to develop that character, good or bad. What they see us do is going to develop that. So.
You know, that was pretty much verbatim what I was going to say. You know, I've lived here for 14 years. I've raised my kids here. Many of your kids have been to my house visiting, and they're all welcome. I know a lot of the kids now, big and small. Just recently, we had one of our own in the hospital. It was a rough time. And he received probably well over 50 get well cards from students, grade school and high school. That's how we've joined our schools. They know us. We've started the SAFE program, which is a Seatbelts for Everyone program, trying to make our students safer. We've been in the schools constantly. You know, we're always going to the schools. We've built a great relationship with the college in Haviland. That's because we're over there. We're working good with them. I believe, just like Mr. Lothman said, just seeing us and talking to us and being around us helps that. They see that there's another life other than drugs. They see that there's another life other than raising Cain. You know, we stop kids all the time. Yeah, we let them go sometimes. We do. That's just what we do. You know, we talk to them. Sometimes we preach to them. Sometimes we get loud with them. That's just what we do as parents. You know, these are our kids too to protect, and we do the best we can.
Kendall, we'll start with you. Oh, sorry. Apparently, they couldn't hear the mic when it was in my lap. I didn't realize it was there. But anyway, sorry. In your opinion, is there a good working relationship with the City Police of Greensburg and the Kiowa County Sheriff's Department? If so, how is that maintained? And if not, how can one be developed?
Okay. At the time, I do not work for either agency, so I think it would be an assumption if I tried to say if there's a good working relationship or not. I have talked to some of the people in the community, and they have told me their opinion, but again, I believe that would be an assumption on my part if I tried to come up with something. So my answer would be, what does it take to make a good relationship? And I've seen that over my career for many agencies that I've worked with. And that's a problem across, I'm going to tell you, numerous agencies between police departments and sheriff's office. There's always seems to be a boundary there. And it's frustrating because we're all on the same side. We all do the same job. And what I have seen in my career, what it takes to fix that is people got to put away their differences, quit worrying about who's going to get credit for good stuff, who's going to get blamed for bad stuff, put together what is important, which is providing a good service to the community. And that is the important part, is the community and the service that we provide to them. Not about who gets credit for it, who does good, who does bad. It should be a team effort. Even though it's under two different agencies, it should be a team effort. So I'm not sure what the relationship is now, but that's how you build a good relationship between those agencies.
When I took over in 2014, the relationship wasn't very well. It wasn't very good at all. When I was interviewed to be appointed as sheriff, one of the interviewees asked me, "Are you going to fix this relationship?" And I said, "I'm going to do the best I can." Since then, we have fixed that relationship. We have a very good working relationship with the city. Now, it's taken a lot of communication. It's taken a lot of listening on our part, which we don't do very well anyway as law enforcement officers. But once we started listening and listening to their side and they started listening to our side, we have built that relationship now to a very good working relationship. The city police chief helps us on cases. We help him on cases. Just recently, we had a probably 3 county-wide drug case that we all completed. We all worked together on. And this is just one example. That was just a recent one during COVID. We do work well, and I think the best way to keep that relationship working well is by communicating. If we don't communicate, we cannot fix anything. And those channels are open now, and we do communicate well with both the city administrators and the city chief.
I'll start with you, Chris, on the final question that you had. In your opinion, what is the most important skill a Kiowa County Sheriff should have?
In my opinion, I don't think you can limit it to one skill. A Kiowa County Sheriff has to be diverse. He has to know everything about dispatch. He has to know everything about the jail. He has to know everything about the road. He has to know administration. Now, does he have to do all of that? No. He also has to be able to delegate and hire people who know how to do all those jobs, so you don't have to be there to do them 100% of the time. Like I said before, we built a team now that if I was gone for 2 months, our sheriff's office would run. It would run great. Everything would get done. It wouldn't be a problem. I think a sheriff has to have compassion. I don't know how many times somebody's come into my office and just wanted to talk, not to complain, just to vent. They just wanted to vent about maybe the chief treated them bad, or they thought he treated them bad, or maybe one of my deputies treated them bad, and they get to talk, and then they realize it wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. But I think you have to have compassion. I think even with your employees, you've got to understand where they're coming from. And sometimes as an administrator, it's hard to remember what it was like when you were on the road or in the jail or in dispatch. And I've done them all. Even as sheriff, I've covered shifts in the jail, covered shifts in dispatch, covered shifts on the road, days and nights. And it's nice to be able to do that because you remember what it's like to be sitting in dispatch at 3 o'clock in the morning and what they're going through and what they're thinking about at that time. You forget that stuff when you're sitting behind a desk or when you become administration. I think a sheriff has to be well-rounded in all versions. You have to know investigations. You have to work with the courts. You have to know the courts. You have to know city ordinances, even though we don't use them. You have to know some federal statutes, even though we don't use them. You have to make those contacts with those outside agencies to be able to build those relationships so when you do need them, they're there. We recently had a chase in Pratt that ended in Pratt. We were there to help them. And we've built those relationships through the years to where they're comfortable calling us for help and we're comfortable calling them for help. But I think your sheriff has to be that well-rounded person. I don't think there's just one skill you can pinpoint to being a good sheriff.
I think there's 2 important parts you have to be a good sheriff. You've got to have good leadership skills, and you've got to have good communication skills. That's what you're going to build everything on. There's a lot of other stuff to it, but those are what you're going to build everything else on is leadership skills and communication skills. And leadership, the big issue is there, you got to lead by example. Your people have to see it from you, and you have to lead by example. And you cannot ask your people to do something that you're not willing to step down and do. And you have to do it yourself. And you have to put that message out that I'm willing to step and do the same thing that I'm asking you to do. You have to set that example for them. Communication. You've got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to talk to your employees. You got to be able to talk to the public. You got to be able to talk to the outlaws. That's just an important part. You got to be able to listen, though. That's probably the most important part. And the same thing, you got to listen to your employees. You've got to listen to the public. And you got to be able to listen to the outlaws. That's how you solve cases, is listening. A very wise person told me something one time. The good Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen twice as much as you talk. Now, that was my mother that told me that, so. But it's true. You do. That's the one thing you've got to be in any leadership role. You've got to listen. And I don't care what you're dealing with your public, bad guys, or your employees. You got to listen, or you're not going to get anything done.
That concludes the questions that the candidates had beforehand. We have several questions for the sheriffs, but some of them have been answered in the questions that they had. In the interest of time, we won't make those questions repeated. For both candidates, what significant programs or accomplishments did you have as sheriff? Okay.
Since I've been in office, like I said, we've developed the SAFE program. We've developed a relationship with the college. We've developed relationships with the schools. We're in the schools all the time. We've been able to accomplish everything we've accomplished by staying under budget this whole time. We've replaced every patrol car. So our guys are responding in reliable units. We've gotten brand new car cameras and body cameras to keep our guys and the public accountable. We investigate every complaint. Somebody comes and complains about an officer, I'll investigate it. Just the other day, somebody complained about one of my guys, and they said they don't know when it happened. It happened in the month of April. That guy just so happens makes a lot of traffic stops and does a lot of stuff. I sat for about 4 hours looking at video for the month of April for him. I will investigate everything. We've got a dog program, an excellent dog program. We've actually just purchased another canine, which is a bike canine, and we've done this also without raising taxes or without raising the budget. I've raised the salary of our employees without raising the budget. We've implemented a lot of programs. We've got a program in the jail where our people don't handle cash anymore. We don't want any more of that. And that's an important part right now. We don't want any of those complaints. We don't want it to look bad. So we did away with our people handling cash. Everything's done by kiosk in the jail and in the lobby. We've implemented video visitation. So we have no chance of people bringing stuff into our jail anymore. They can still visit, but they don't bring stuff, they don't come back in our jail. They do it all by video now. We've implemented a new phone system. We've implemented new camera systems at our sheriff's office. We've purchased camera systems that we've placed out in the communities when we're having burglary problems. And that's all without raising the budget. That's all on our budget. And we do that because we don't want the taxpayers to have to go buy their own camera system. We don't get very many calls here for burglaries. But when we do, we have those available. We've done a lot in the last 6 years to bring the sheriff's office up to where it should be. Thank you.
Well, it's been a few years since I've been sheriff, so let me dig back. One program that I had done when I was sheriff here that I was very proud of, and I'm still doing the same program now at the sheriff's office that I'm working at. There is a huge problem in jails across the nation with inmates having mental issues. Some of those mental issues are caused by drugs. Some of them are caused by stress. Some of them are caused by situations they're put in. But there is a huge problem across the nation dealing with mental illness inside our correctional facilities. And we had started up a program where we started trying to deal with that inside our jail facilities and trying to keep those people stable and keep services coming to them while they're there. Because usually what happens is they come to jail, a lot of times their medication quits, their services that they're receiving quit, and they're expected to do well, and they're not going to. They're going to fail. They're going to get worse. And then when they get out of jail, we expect them to do well, and they're not going to. And they're going to end up coming back. So we started a program that would help them while they were in the facility, and then it would set up a program as they got out that they would have some support, and they would have the medication, they would have the counseling that they needed to give them a chance to do better when they got out and not come back to the facility. And this is a huge problem, and there's just a lot of jails that just ignore it and expect the people to do it on their own, and that's not going to happen. But there's been a big initiative across the nation to do this and to bring light to it and try to help these people and keep them out of our facilities, or at least help them to give them a fighting chance not to come back. So that is one program that I can say that we initiated here when I was sheriff, and like I said, we're initiating the same program now at the sheriff's office that I'm at now.
The final question from the audience this evening is for Kendall, and it is, do you plan to move your family to Kiowa County and put your children in the school system in Kiowa County?
Yes, that is the plan. Move to the county. Like I said to start with, the whole reason that I ran for sheriff is I'm ready to come home. This is where my family's at. My mom still lives in Haviland. My mother-in-law still lives in Greensburg. My brother still lives here. We own land here. We're ready to come home, and that's the whole intent, is us to come home and put our family back here.
5-minute concluding remarks. Chris, we'll start with you.
You know, as I said, I decided to run for sheriff because I've been here for 14 of the last 16 years. I plan on staying here. I don't plan on going anywhere else. I've worked hard through my career to build it up to where I'm at now, and I plan on continuing to work hard to learn more and do better. My kids are almost all grown. I'm not sure how that's going to go. It's hard readjusting once your kids are out of school. I don't know how many of you have them that way. It's hard readjusting to the football, not going to the football games as much, or running here and there every other week or every other day. But I plan on devoting my time to the sheriff's office. So one thing I've learned as I've been out talking to people is people don't know me. And that really upset me when people started saying that. I believe a sheriff needs to be known by his citizens. And I've promised every one of them, and it's a promise I intend to keep. I will go out in the community, and they will know me. I do know a lot of the farmers. A lot of the ones that I've talked to have said the same thing. You know, you've done a good job. We've got good officers now. We get good patrolling, but we just don't know you. I intend to do that better. I will do that better. That really upsets me because that was always the thing that growing up, I say growing up, as I was progressing through the years, I always said that was the thing I would not do. If I ever made it to sheriff or a leadership role, I would make sure that my community knew me. So that is one thing I plan on. I will do better. Because get out in the community, get out in the coffee shops. Even though I'm not much of a coffee drinker, I'll get out there. I want them all to know me. I want them to be able to feel comfortable coming to me and talking to me. But we've had a good 6 years, and I plan on making it a good 10 years, and then a good 14 years. Just continuing with the programs we've got and adding some more. We've got young guys now who, I'm not a technology savvy guy, and they all know it, and they're probably laughing right now. If I don't go to my sons for technology, I go to the young guys, and they come up with different things that help our communities. I think it's important to have young guys as well as us older guys to build our relationship to where it needs to be, build our sheriff's office to where it needs to be. But I appreciate everybody coming out. I know it's been a long night. Appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate everybody who's given their continued support. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to make this real short and sweet. I just want to thank the committee for putting this on. I want to thank the Twilight Theater for hosting this. I want to thank everybody here for coming out and taking an interest in this political process that makes our government work. Without that interest, we wouldn't have anything. So I want to thank everybody for coming out and taking the interest in doing this. And now the biggest thing, I don't care who you support, what candidates are up here, who you support, let your voice be heard. Show up on August the 4th and vote. That's the most important thing. Just show up and vote. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Just want to say thank you again for all of the candidates that came, and especially the audience and those that are on the live stream. Thank you so much, George and staff. I think the people of Kiowa County are well aware of the unique theater and opportunity we have in this community, and thank you so much for your work and for your work in this endeavor. And thank Grant for the Kiowa County Media Center and his live streaming. He's been able to do that on so many events during this COVID epidemic, and it's been a blessing for all of us. Thank you so much, and vote August 4th.